Like As the mayor of the town of Clayton, I'd like to call this regular work session town council meeting to order. Ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Most gracious and heavenly Father, we pause to give you thanks for the many blessings of this day, Lord, and we ask you to be with us as we proceed with the business for the town of Clayton. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda? I would like to add one under administrative items, the swearing in of the interim town clerk position. That will be under administrative items. Any others? All right, if not, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. And now I'm going to ask Sherry Scoggins if you will meet me at the podium, and we will do the swearing in for the interim town clerk. I guess we have to have a Bible, do we?
Well, we can affirm. It's okay.
Okay, good. All
So I
right.
need to raise my right hand.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sherry L. Scoggins,
I, Sherry L. Scoggins,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States,
and laws of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities which are or may be established
established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of said state,
of said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the laws of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as interim town clerk.
as interim town clerk.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good to be back.
Thank you. I'll give you a few words if you'd like to say.
Okay. I do get to sign. I'll give it back to you at the end. It's okay. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, I would just like to thank the Town Council for this opportunity to be of service to the town of Clayton during this period of transition for you, and I look forward to serving you in the next several months. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Sherry's picture is on the walls back there probably as many times as the mayor's picture is hanging back there, and she's a former full-time position town clerk with the town of Clayton, and we are so honored and appreciative that she would come back and be in a great service position to the town of Clayton as we transition. So Sherry, thank you and welcome. All right, next under introductions and special presentations will be employee introductions, and we'll begin with Greg Nelson, Property Maintenance Superintendent.
Good evening, Council. Like you said, my name's Greg Nelson. I'm the Facility Maintenance Superintendent here at the Town of Clayton. I'm here this evening to introduce the newest member of our custodian staff, Janice Hall. Janice has come to us with over 12 years of custodial work experience. It's really shown in the last few weeks that she's been here. I'd now like to introduce Janice Hall.
Hello. I thank you for the opportunity of working for the town of Clayton. I just feel very blessed to be here. And I'm very happy I won't be sitting in 40 traffic any longer.
Nice. Welcome, Janice. Thank you. And then up next, we have Deputy Fire Chief Matt Sutphin and Stacy Turner, Battalion Chief. I think it's both.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Deputy Fire Chief Matt Sutphin. Not going to take up a lot of your time because obviously we have a big group we're introducing tonight. I did want to talk a little about our assessment center because, as you know, hiring can be tough right now. You can hire 2 or 3 people. And you see this group we hired right here, and they're all high-quality candidates that I think will be in Clayton for a long time. They may not all call Clayton home, but if you ask them right now, they are already calling Clayton, the town of Clayton and the fire department home. So we're excited to have them. Our assessment center involves all different ranks that are helping pick these guys. It's not just me, not just our chief officers. It goes, all firefighters are involved in it, captains, all different ranks. So it says a lot that we involve all of them to help pick these guys because they're the ones who worked with them. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Battalion Chief Stacy Turner, and he'll introduce you to all the guys and we have here tonight. I did tonight, unfortunately, tell them no speeches. Because I didn't want to take up too much time. They're very upset about that, so just to let you know.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Touching on what Chief Sutphin said, we do have numerous years of knowledge and experience that we did through our assessment centers. So I know y'all got a long meeting. I'll go ahead and start. First off, Justin Allen. He comes to us from Goldsboro Fire Department. Sir. I'm doing this quick. They know how fast I move. Jared Barwick, also from City of Goldsboro Fire Department. Alex Brogdon, Wayne County Sheriff's Department.
Nice.
Jordan Craven. Jordan was hired as an FEO engineer's process. He's from the City of Kinston.
Nice.
Next is Antoine Hardy, also from the City of Kinston. Kevin Honeycutt from 5210 Fire Department originally. Art Jones, he comes to us from Goldsboro Fire Department as well. Ray Kemp, he comes to us from our neighbors in Cleveland Fire Department. Seth Knott, we went down in the county and got him from Irwin Fire Department down in Horne County. Aaron Lee, he comes to us from City of Goldsboro Fire Department. Austin Newhouse from the City of Goldsboro Fire Department. Dominic Singletary, City of Goldsboro Fire Department. Marshall Smith, Smithfield Fire Department. And Steve Well. Steve Well comes to us from, he's got a business, but he comes to us from Corinth Holders Fire Department. And that is our 14 people.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a job well done. And we want to say welcome to each and every one of you. You know, obviously the mayor is not going to be welcomed in Goldsboro anytime soon. And there's one worse than that. That's the mayor of Kinston. I will never be able to go see Mayor Hardy again. But seriously, we thank you for being a part of the town of Clayton, and we thank you for the expertise that you bring to the job. And, you know, there are a lot of people looking for positions like this, and for you to come out on top and take the reins says a lot about who you are and what you stand for. And this council is a firm believer in public safety, and we put our money where our mouth is. And we also have high expectations, as Matthew Sutphin will tell you, and we have yet to be disappointed. Congratulations. Welcome to the town of Clayton. I am just curious to know if you have any friends left in Goldsboro. I'm thinking not. I have to fly low. All right, next on the agenda is the Governor's Proclamation in recognition of Procurement Month. Give the floor to Sean.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. I'm not sure what to call Mr. Barbie, interim town manager tonight, deputy town manager, Ms. Gill, and finance officer, Mr. McKay. I'm here tonight to talk, first of all, a little bit about Procurement Month. So during the month of March, Governor Roy Cooper acknowledges procurement professionals across the state of North Carolina who make a difference in procurement efficiency and effectiveness. During this month, it is a great time to help educate elected officials, administrators, and vendors about the procurement process here at the town and the admirable work the Procurement Division performs every day. This year during Procurement Month, the town procurement team was fortunate to attend the 66th Annual North Carolina Association of Governmental Purchasers Annual Spring Conference, which was held here in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Convention Center. The title was Unmask Your Procurement Potential. The conference brings together local government procurement professionals from across the state to collaborate, learn new initiatives, innovative ideas, and network with each other. Classes were held each day that featured some of the best facilitators from across the state. It is a time to connect with the vendor community and learn ways to collaborate and be more effective in our external relationships. The team was also able to represent Clayton at the conference and give Clayton the opportunity to have a seat at the table amongst the state procurement professionals. I was very fortunate. I've been on the board for the NCAGP for going on 7 years, and this year I'm also serving as the Professional Development Committee Chair. So I also have taught classes during the actual spring conference, during our regionals that we have yearly, and also I've taught a couple at the national, the NIGP conference. So this year I was able to teach the class for the shall I say, the newcomers to the profession. We have what we call welcoming the first timers, and I was able to actually instruct a class. It was called Ready, Set, Purchase that I did, and I was able to present that, and it was one of the largest attended because we had 52 new members. I also wanted to say we had 160 attendees at the conference this year, and we had 85 vendors that were also at our vendor expo this year. So it was a really big conference. It went over really well, and I don't know if you saw on WRAL, but there was actually a small film of the conference where they were asking us about the hotel situation, the number of rooms that they have in Raleigh for the conference center. And actually, if you look at it really closely, they actually came in my room to film, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for that or anything. So they came into the room, and actually there's one part of the filmage which shows my presentation up there, and it has the town of Clayton. I thought that was really cool that it had the town of Clayton down at the bottom of it. But back to my story, the procurement division, in the short time we have been part of the town, we have made great strides to develop more effective purchasing policies, procedures, upgrade the warehouse procedures. We're currently working on finalizing a streamlined contract process and implementing a contract module. The future looks bright as we move forward with also implementing the MWBE program, making it a little more robust than it has been here at the town. Procurement Month goes by very quickly, because not also is it Procurement Month, but it's my birthday month. It's also St. Patrick's Day, and it's also beginning of spring. So I always look forward to March, but you know, with those other things and then Procurement Month, it's always exciting and it goes by quick. And also we were out of the office for that week of the conference. However, in our first year celebrating Procurement Month, we were able to host a procurement meet and greet, the morning mixer. which included such things as breakfast snacks, gift bags for attendees, procurement games, guess the purchasers trivia, and that was about each one of us. We had some little slides going on the PowerPoint and had little questions like, for me it was, who bowled a 300 game? And that was me, because I've done 3 actually. So, where's Nader? No, and so it was a great time for all of us. We got to collaborate with the different departments that came to the mixer. Also, we were very lucky to have 2 of our council members, Councilmember Archer and Councilmember Casey, who actually came in and visited. I was actually in the budget meeting, and I saw them walk by, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to run down the hall, and I go flying down the hall to be down there to talk to them. So that was kind of very exciting. We're actually having our second one next week. It's going to be out at the Ops training room. We're going to do one for them out there. We're going to do the same sort of setup, but it gives us a great opportunity to collaborate with the departments, let them know what we do, and then we get to actually hear their needs, and we're able to collaborate and come together. They can ask us questions during the session. It's not formal, it's very informal. It's just a fun get-together that we thought of doing this year, and hopefully moving forward, we'll have some other ideas during Procurement Month that we'll be able to talk about. I'd also like to recognize the procurement staff. They were unable to come here with me tonight, but we have Karen Malcolm, who you guys met. She's our procurement analyst. She came from the city of Raleigh. We also have Christy Germano, she was already here with the town, but she's moved over to our warehouse supervisor, and we have Dariel Anderson, who came to us from the city of Raleigh. He's going to be our procurement technician at this time. So I'd like to end with a quote that I found. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them, by Albert Einstein. And what I like to take away from this quote is, as procurement professionals, we just don't buy. Everyone thinks that's what we do. We buy, right? We find solutions through innovative methods. There's such a gray area. If you know anything about purchasing, contracts, services, there's a very gray area with the law and the different things that we work with. It takes a lot of research. It takes knowledge that goes into developing informal, formal bids, RFPs, which can be very difficult and are very gray, RFQs, and also contracts. All of this said, procurement is the gatekeeper of getting the best value and the best price for the taxpayers' money and for the town, and being sure the town remains compliant with federal law, state law, and local policy, while also protecting the liability of the town. So we do quite a bit, and we have a big role here at the town. So now I just wanted to read real quickly the proclamation that the governor actually ordered this back in like October, and I was concerned I wasn't going to get it because I didn't receive it, and that's why I didn't present it at the last meeting, but finally I got the official copy with the seal from Governor Roy Cooper, and it says, Procurement Month 2022 by the governor of the state of North Carolina, a proclamation. Whereas the purchasing, acquisition, procurement, and materials management professions have a significant role in the quality and efficiency of business and government throughout the United States, and whereas professionals in the purchasing, acquisitions, procurement, and materials management fields are employed in private and public sectors as well in profit and nonprofit organization, and whereas public procurement is an essential function of state government, providing for the purchase of goods and services necessary for the safe and effective operations of the state, including purchases for education, health, and human services, transportation, administration, and others, and whereas purchasing professionals engage in or have direct responsibility for purchasing goods and services, executing and implementing contracts, developing forecast and procurement strategies, supervising and monitoring storage of materials, and developing working relationship with suppliers and departments within an organization, and whereas procurement professionals make important contributions to assure the responsible use of taxpayer dollars by providing efficient service while maintaining the highest ethical standard, and whereas local, state, and federal purchasing professionals are responsible for managing and monitoring billions of dollars of goods and services every year, which directly influence the national and international economy, and whereas the North Carolina Association of Governmental Purchasing and the National Institute of Governmental Purchasing the North Carolina Department of Administration's Division of Purchasing Contract, and other associations around the world are sponsoring activities and other special events to further educate and inform the public regarding the role of purchasing. Now therefore, I, Roy Cooper, Governor of the State of North Carolina, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as Procurement Month in North Carolina and commend an observance to all citizens. So we will be hanging this in the purchasing office if anybody wants to come by and see or read. And we look forward to our meet and greet next Wednesday. Thank you very much, Council. I appreciate
Awesome. Great job, Sean Mazzell. Thank you. Questions or comments? Thank you very much. Mr. Thompson.
I just want to say, this is, we have an obligation as an elected body to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. This isn't my town hall or the mayor's or anybody on this council. This is the citizens. And I think responsible purchasing done through policy and doing it the right way is how to be a good steward of the taxpayer dollar. And I thank you for everything you do to make sure things are done right.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. All right, up next on the agenda are our public hearings for this evening. The first one is 2021-165 RZ, Front Street and O'Neill Street.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. I have the pleasure of presenting to you tonight a parcel that is up for rezoning. Currently, it's a small parcel, about 0.129 acres. It's located at Front Street in the corner of O'Neill Street. It is currently zoned for B1, which is central business. It's currently vacant, and the developing company would like to come in and rezone it to R6, which is single-family residential. The R6 also has means to, through special permit use, become one of our more highly dense zoning districts. So there's potential for developers to come in and add much-needed housing there. You can see here on the map that it's located right there in case it's like the little shape of a boot. Here we have the current zoning. Around it right now is actually, it's all zoned for R6 as well, so it'd be in line with what's there already. We have single family homes there. As you can see, it would just fit perfectly there. It is consistent with our comprehensive growth plan laid out in the land use one and policies and strategy, and also with our goals for downtown area to provide infilling in lots and unused properties to provide people places to come down and either live or provide businesses. This case would be what's needed is much needed housing. The future land use has it as downtown support. So this, we believe, is in line with future land use goals, as well as it would give people the ability to work, live, and be downtown as well. The planning staff currently recommends approval of this rezoning request, and the planning board, after careful examination, they believe that this request is consistent with our land use goals and our future plans, and agree that it should be approved as well. Do you guys have any questions?
Did this involve a neighborhood meeting with adjoining property owners?
Yes, there was a neighborhood meeting. They had a virtual neighborhood meeting. Unfortunately, not many of the neighbors were able to attend.
Okay, so I know some of that is rental property. So people renting on some adjoining property may not have had the technology or a capability of joining virtually. But I'm sure like the property owners of adjoining property were notified. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. All property owners were notified within the 100-foot radius, okay. As well as we did put out newspaper postings as well, as we always do for these type of things.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Would you like to provide a statement of how this is consistent and reasonable for the town?
I think that would be good for the record.
I'm sorry, I believe I misspoke. I understand that town council would consider and then make a move to approve or deny.
Thank you. All right, any questions or comments? Mr. Thompson?
I just think it makes sense. You know, one thing that I think we've not, in the past, done a good job of is preserving residential downtown. It seems like a lot of things have converted to businesses, and we're losing some of our residential downtown over the years. And to me, it just makes sense to provide a place for people to live and be able to walk downtown to eat and shop and do. So this makes sense to me. And it's consistent with what's surrounding it.
Yes, sir.
I agree. Anyone else? All right. This has been noted as a public hearing, so if there's anyone who wishes to speak on this topic, please step forward and state your name for the record.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. David DeYoung with Hearth Point Development, applicant for the project. We're happy to be here tonight, and we agree with the staff's recommendation of approval and the Planning Board's recommendation of approval, and are just here to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Any questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Dave. All right. I'll close the public hearing, and I'll turn it over to the council for their discussion. Ms. Archer.
Thank you. I was just going to add to Councilman Thompson's statements that it's consistent with the surrounding uses. And in addition, I think there is somewhere in our growth plan where it states that we do want to preserve residential downtown. It does help add vitality and life to a downtown area and after hours. So I support this as well.
Awesome. All right. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2022-03-02.
And go ahead.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Before I second, sorry, refresh my memory. I apologize. What we need to say here, do we need to say this word for word? Okay. Apologies. So we need to read it as it appears on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion that we find the rezoning action consistent with the future land use map go LUI policy LU 1.1 strategy LU 1.1.1 go DT1 policy DT of the comprehensive growth plan of 2045. And adoption of ordinance number 2022-03-02. And we find this a rezoning action reasonable and in the public interest because it encourages filling in of existing lots within the downtown area, and through this, it furthers the objects of the comprehensive growth plan of 2045.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of the ordinance 2022-03-02. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, and the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, public hearing is the 2022-4 RZ ETM Junior Properties.
Good evening, council, members of the public. My name is Aaron Pritchard. I'm planner 2 here at the town. I bring to you a proposed rezoning action of a piece of property that's about 3.68 acres, located right at the entrance ramp onto the Clayton bypass if you're heading down 70 Business. The request is to rezone it from RE to Highway Business B3. Existing use of it is vacant. There's nothing there. So as you can see here, the current zoning on the property, it's actually split zone. So the portion of the two parcels that are closest to 70 Business are already B3, and the landowner and applicant wish to just basically make the entirety of those two parcels B3, so there's no longer a split zoning there. In the bottom map, as you can see on the PowerPoint, the black stars are where I went out and placed notice signs in accordance with our ordinances. And as just a reminder, the hatched stuff that's on 70 Business, that is the thoroughfare overlay district. That's an overlay zoning that goes all the way along 70 Business up and down. These are just a few photos that I took when placing the signs out at the site. One of them is along 70 Business, and the other one is along the adjacent street on the north side of the property. This is a slide just showing a few of the goals, policies, and strategies from our growth plan, which I found to be consistent and compatible with this proposed zoning action. So goal LU1, that it will preserve Clayton's character, allowing for growth. This is down near the Griffles and Novo Nordisk uses, so it's very close to that. As well, it would increase opportunities for companies to provide well-paid jobs. So B3 is kind of a complementary zoning district to what's already down there. This is taken from the future land use map in our growth plan. So it shows that all of the adjacent properties, as well as this property itself, are called for as employment center. So that's the future land use that it has identified there. So the proposed rezone B3 would be consistent with that future land use category of employment center. So in conclusion, staff recommends that you approve the proposed rezoning request. The planning board already recommended approval, and I just included here a quick blurb. Planning board is actually required as well to have a statement of consistency with our town plans and policies. So I just mentioned that as well. So it's consistent with LU1. I won't read all of it, but you can see. And I did get confirmation, and I really apologize to Councilmember Sims. You actually don't have to read the entire statement up there. For the motion that's in your packet, at least for mine, it just references the slide, which I actually included here, that has both statements. One, the statement of consistency, and two, the statement of reasonableness and being in the public interest. So if you want to, you do have to read this portion verbatim, but you can just reference what's on the PowerPoint. So that should be it. And yeah, that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
Questions of staff? All right. So this has been noted as a public hearing. If there's anyone who wishes to speak on this, please step forward and state your name for the record.
My name's Austin Gilbert, 442.5 East Main Street in Clayton. Just getting rid of the old rezoning when it used to be general business, 500 foot each side of 70. It's a relic left over from the county zoning, and we're just trying to get the whole property to B3.
Thanks, sir.
No, thank you.
Anyone else? No one else wishing to speak. I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the council for their deliberation. Ms. Archer.
The proposed zoning fits with the character of the adjoining and surrounding properties, and as noted in the staff report, is consistent with the 2045 growth plan. So I would have a motion to approve 2022-4-RZ ETM JR Properties Ordinance Number 2022-0303, and to approve the statement of consistency and reasonableness presented in the PowerPoint presentation tonight.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance 2022-0303. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, and motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Up next, under public hearing, is the 2021-90 CZM Ramblewood Village.
Good evening, Council, and welcome to your night of planning items. So this is a conditional zoning with master plan for Ramblewood Village. The request is to rezone properties from RE and B3 zoning to conditional zoning residential with allowance for up to 154 units of a mixture of townhomes and single-family homes at a density of approximately 7 units per acre. The property size is just over 22 acres, and it's located off of US 70 Business West near the intersection with Ramblewood Drive. On the screen here is the overall site plan. I do want to note that this is revised from what the planning board had seen. So and you'll see it a little bit later on in the presentation. I'll remind you again, but the planning board during their review of the site did recommend or did ask for the density to be reduced, and the applicant agreed to reduce the density from 8 dwelling units per acre to 7. And so instead of having to write a condition stating that and require them to come back with a revised site plan, they were able to revise site plan and master plan narrative between the planning board meeting and the council meeting. So what you're seeing tonight is the final site plan with a maximum of 154 units at 7 dwelling units per acre. And I will point out here, the biggest changes that have been made is they reduced the unit counts to pull both the roadways and the units a little bit further back from the railroad, and then they also reduced the number of units that are fronting on the wetland to the right of your screen. The proposed uses in the development is single-family residential, or is residential with a mixture of single-family homes and townhomes. Again, 7 units an acre. The access is going to be through a right-in, right-out access on US 70 Business West, which would be a new access, and then utilizing the existing full access on Ramblewood Drive. Water and sewer will be provided by the town of Clayton, electrics provided by Duke Energy, and annexation will be required for this property. It's currently surrounded by mostly RE zoning with some B3 zoning on the 70 frontage. To the east of the property is the NC State Research Farm, and then to the west of the property is existing residential. The proposed mix of the development is 96 single-family homes and 58 townhomes. You'll see on your slide there their proposed dimensional standards, which do differ slightly from our UDC requirements. And then for transportation improvements, they are required to construct right turn lane on US 70 at the new roadway access, a right turn lane on US 70 at Ramblewood Drive, and they will also be improving Ramblewood Drive with a right turn lane on Ramblewood itself, as well as resurfacing Ramblewood from Highway 70 back to their access point on Ramblewood. The project will comply with Town of Clayton Stormwater Ordinance. There's public water available on US 70 at Ramblewood Drive, and public sewer is available on US 70, but it will require an extension of gravity sewer main, as well as potential pump station improvements. You'll notice one of the conditions does require the development to conduct a study to determine needed public sewer improvements, and electrical services available from Duke Energy. The project includes approximately 7.75 acres of open space and amenities, including protected wetlands and a pond, and they will construct additional neighborhood amenities, including an off-leash dog park, community pool and clubhouse, and mulch walking trail around the existing pond. They will also be installing a 15-foot wide Type C landscaping buffer They have agreed to a condition requiring a 6-foot-tall privacy fence as part of that buffer. And they will also be adding 12 additional shrubs per 100 linear feet in addition to the required shrubs in the ordinance. They will also be providing a thoroughfare street yard buffer on US 70 frontage, and the interior landscaping will meet the UDC requirements. And you can see on the right side of the slide here, they have also proposed the following 10 architectural standards, which are conditioned in as well. The conditional zoning district criteria is listed on the screen here. The first one is consistency with adopted plans and policies of the town. They do not currently comply or are not consistent with the 2040 growth plan, which is the plan that was in effect when this project was submitted. But they are also not consistent with the 2045 growth plan either. However, the applicant has proposed conditions to mitigate that impact of the additional density in this area. The suitability of subject property is, you can see on the slide, current zoning permits a mix of commercial and very low density residential uses. The proposed conditional district will permit only residential uses, and the applicant is proposing to connect public water and extend public sewer to serve the development. And the proposed development would provide a mix of housing with easy access to Clayton and Wake County to improve the balance of uses or meet specific demands in town. For capacity of adequate public facilities and services, I did look on the Johnson County Schools website, and it does appear that all the schools that would serve this development are currently on the capped list for Johnson County for this year. For transportation, the development will be accessed from US Highway 70 Business and Ramblewood Drive. They do have a number of parks and recreation facilities close by. As far as wastewater, again, they'll be served by utilizing existing wastewater facilities infrastructure along Highway 70. Public water is currently available at the development site, and they will follow our stormwater ordinance for stormwater drainage. And there is an added condition to exceed our requirements for erosion control as well as stormwater in order to help protect the irrigation pond on the research farm property. And again, that was a condition that was requested to be added by the planning board. And all ordinances, procedures, and approvals will be followed so that legal purposes are not contravened. As far as adverse impact on adjoining property owners, the development will have a 15-foot landscape buffer with an opaque privacy fence that's 6 feet tall around the development. It will also preserve existing wetlands adjacent to the research farm, and they've agreed to a condition requiring disclosure on future plats, deeds, and then covenants about potential noxious smells, noises, and dust from farming operations on the research farm. And with the imposed conditions, there is not expected to be any detriment to the general public. You'll see here, we also have master plan approval criteria, and staff believes that the applicant has met these criteria through the master plan narrative and the proposed conditions. And with that, I'm going to let Jonathan Jacobs, our assistant town engineer, speak to the wastewater allocation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jonathan Jacobs, Assistant Town Engineer. You have all seen this graph very many times here recently, but as you all are aware, we are reaching our capacity limits of our current wastewater infrastructure capacities, and the timing of additional capacity for development is subject to some pretty critical projects that are currently underway, two of which are the Little Creek Pump Station at the existing wastewater treatment facility, and then the transmission line to connect that facility to our new facility. And as an interim measure, try to use some of that additional allocation that you all approved to our Raleigh resource. So with that being said, the project is requesting a total of 44,630 gallons per day for the project of 154 units. And based on the critical timelines of our capacity issues, we are proposing that to be on a phase schedule, and that allocation would not be available until July 1st of 2023.
All right, and then just to go over a few considerations for the town council. Town council shall consider recommendation of the planning board and the planning director and shall adopt a written statement of reasonableness and consistency. The town council shall approve with conditions, or deny the conditional zoning district. Just a reminder, the applicant must agree to any changes and conditions prior to the council decision. The conditional zoning district master plan and master plan narrative will be recorded with Johnston County if the conditional zoning district is approved, and they run with the land and will not expire. And finally, if this conditional zoning district is approved, the 2045 growth plan future land use map will be considered amended to match the proposed conditional zoning district, with the note showing that this area has now been designated as high-density residential. Staff recommends approval of the Ramblewood Village Conditional Zoning District Master Plan subject to the 15 recommended conditions of approval. The Planning Board on February 28th, by a vote of 6-2, recommended approval of the Conditional Zoning District based on the proposed application meeting the criteria for approval and with the inclusion of the recommended conditions of approval agreed to by the applicant, with following 2 conditions added, including limiting the overall density to 7 units per acre, which has already been done, and then adding in the condition regarding erosion control and stormwater controls. And then finally, the planning board did adopt a consistency statement finding that the proposed conditional zoning district is not consistent with the Town of Clayton 2040 comprehensive growth plan. We have recommended conditions of approval here. I will not read through all of them, but the first 3 are sort of our standard conditions. We do have a condition that the property be annexed, limiting the uses to single-family detached residential, including the maximum number of units, maximum dwelling, maximum density, and addressing their lot size and lot dimension standards, requiring the transportation improvements that I've already mentioned, requiring the fee in lieu of recreation open space at platting, including the minimum of 3 amenity areas, including the type C buffers with the fence and the additional shrubs. Condition 11 is addressing their public sewer and the study that they will undertake to determine what improvements may be needed. Condition 12 is that each unit will contain sustainable high-efficiency appliances to be certified through the Eco Select program. This condition is directly related to points they receive through the wastewater allocation. And then also the condition requiring an informational statement regarding the farming operations surrounding the property. Condition 14 is requiring all the single-family homes and townhomes to comply with architectural standards. Condition 15 is that new condition that was added after planning board regarding exceeding the Town of Clayton soil erosion, sedimentation control, and stormwater ordinances in order to protect the irrigation pond on the research farm. And then condition 16 is our standard condition that to the extent any conflict between the master plan narrative and these conditions shall control. And finally, here on the screen, I do have the statement of consistency and reasonableness that staff is recommending. The applicant is here and prepared with the presentation, and I believe there may also be members of the public here as well.
I wanted to note, I didn't mention, there will be a separate action on the wastewater following the action of this item.
So I'm available to answer any questions unless you'd like to hear from the applicant next.
Any questions for staff? All right. This has been noted as a public hearing. If there's anyone else wishing to speak on this subject, please step forward and state your name for the record.
I'll go ahead and get started while that's loading, but Good evening, Mayor McLeod and the Town Council. My name is Marty Bizzle, project engineer with Bass, Sixton Kennedy Engineers in Raleigh, 6310 Chapel Hill Road. I'm very pleased to be here this evening to present Ramblewood Village. It's been a journey. We are one of the first projects to go through the new CZ zoning process, and we have learned some things, and I think staff has learned some things, but all in all, I think we've got a better product by going through this process, and staff has been wonderful to work with as they all too were navigating through this new process. But I do appreciate your time in being here. I don't want to repeat anything that Ben has already said. I have a full presentation, so I'll try to skip a slide if Ben has already covered it. I'd like to introduce my project team here with me tonight. Of course, I'm Marty Bizzle, the project engineer. Gary Walston is with us. He's with our office. He was the planner, landscape architect for this. John Myers with us tonight is the owner representative. And Nate Boquin is a registered professional engineer specializing in traffic with Ramey Kemp and Associates, who did our traffic study. Nate has pretty much showed you where, Ben has showed you pretty much where this is. I think everybody's pretty familiar with it. It's out 70 West next to the NC State Go Pack Research Farm. And this is our entire project kind of honed in a little bit there. You can see, it's already been mentioned, the concern from the research farm being their pond, which is immediately downstream from us, and that's why we have entered into the conditions, a new condition based on our conversations with the research farm to do everything we can to protect the quality of that pond. This is basically our site data describing the project. Ben has pretty much covered that. I just wanted to kind of hone in on what we have done since the planning board meeting to revise this project based on the comments we received at the planning board meeting. We have reduced our total units by 17. We have reduced our density down to 7 units per acre, which gives us a different count from 171 to 154 total, which equates to 96 detached homes and 58 townhomes, and you can see the previous numbers there. One thing that also changed that by doing that, we were able to add more guest parking, which I know is an issue that you guys have probably heard it. We hear it a lot. But we are providing 102 guest parking spaces, which is in and above the town requirement. We're meeting the town requirement by adding 2 spaces per unit, but these would be in addition to that. So we've increased that from 93 to 102. We hope that helps mitigate any parking problems that may persist there. Ben has already talked about the condition that we added. Unfortunately, it's the one that I wrote, and it's the longest one on there, but I won't read it. But it basically says that we will be going above and beyond the town requirements, the state requirements, to basically keep our sediment out of that pond that's immediately downstream from us. And there's a number of things that we can do. We mentioned a couple of things that would decrease the turbidity levels in that pond. NC State has already talked to us about, they will be doing water quality monitoring. They'll be talking to us, and if we need to change up something, we will. Obviously, the plans would have to be approved by stormwater engineer Susan Locklear here with the town before we could even commence anything. So we hope to collaborate with NC State and the town to make sure we've got a good product there. This is our revised plan. We did not want to come to you saying, here's 171 units and imagine that was 17 less. So we have worked with Ben to get this thing revised so we could show you what we're actually planning on building. So Ben kind of went over that. There's a few things I wanted to highlight a little bit. The dark green area there, we've already talked about the type C landscape buffer, but I wanted to kind of show that, but that would go around the whole perimeter of our site. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our amenities. We do have an existing pond that we propose to retain with a walking trail around it. We'll have a dog park up to 8,500 square feet, kind of just south of the bend there in the public street that's traversing through the property. And then out closer to the 70 site, which is kind of broken out here separately on the right side, we'll have a pool and a bathhouse with parking as well. So we feel like it's a good, as you see in our narrative, it's a place to live and play, all inclusive. So we feel very, very highly about that. Our landscaping, we've kind of talked about the buffer, which is our big feature here. This is a little bit of a horizontal layout of what that buffer looks like. It's a little bit hard to envision that, so we've added a slide to kind of show you what that looks like at maturity, which that's what the UDO talks about. Our trees need to reach a height of 40 to 50 feet, our understory trees 15 to 25, and then our shrubbery, and then obviously Ben mentioned we are providing a 6-foot opaque fence within that 15-foot buffer. So that gives you a little bit of a proximity. It's a little easier to visualize that buffering around the project, which, you know, to the east we're buffering from the research farm, to the west, and we're buffering from some existing neighbors, and then to the north, obviously, the railroad. So our residents will definitely benefit from that. I've kind of touched on a little, and this is all in your narrative that's provided in your packet there, but it does highlight the pool, the neighborhood dog park, and the walking trails. Talking a little bit about the intricacies of the actual layout. As you can see, the single families, they face inward. They don't face a public street like is typical. But this is a unique layout, but not unique to Clayton. Many of you will remember a few years ago, we stood up here and talked about the village at East Walk, at East Village, the walk at East Village. And that has been highly successful. So the same kind of concept is what is being proposed here, where the single-family homes face inward to a public courtyard, and they are connected by a series of pedestrian sidewalks. And they're actually rear-loaded from the rear, and you can see kind of a little bit of an example there where we have the two-car garages. The ones that do not have two-car garages would have a parking pad next to it. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of how this all works. But even the townhomes would be rear-loaded from a private alley and then facing inward. This gives a little bit of a perspective of what this is going to look like. This is our single-family homes, and they obviously are facing inward to that courtyard there. And you can see they are all connected by a series of pedestrian sidewalks, which ultimately lead out to the streets. Highly walkable community. This is just a kind of a snapshot of what a side unit might look like. You can see, obviously, this is looking from the courtyard, looking to the back where the garage is in the rear, and the alley in the back where the access to the garages are shown where the blue car is there. This is a perspective of what the townhome units would look like. They actually would be facing a street. And which is a little bit different, but those sidewalks are actually connected out to the sidewalks leading from the units would be actually leading and connected out to a series of sidewalks along the private streets, which have sidewalks on both sides. The coolest slide I'm going to show tonight, I don't know why I like this so well, but the rear of the townhomes. Obviously, you can see the two-car garages accessed by the private alley, and my favorite part is the elevated decks over there. I think it's kind of a cool concept that you don't see everywhere, but very, very unique there. Our traffic engineer is going to come up in just a moment, but I wanted to just highlight what we are showing as far as our improvements, and this basically are directly coming from our traffic study as far as recommendations to help mitigate our proposed traffic. Would be providing 2 right-hand turn lanes on US 70 West, one at our entrance, our proposed entrances, as you see here, and then one at Ramblewood Drive. So we have 2 right-hand turn lanes on US 70, and then on Ramblewood Drive, we would actually be improving Ramblewood Drive with a 20-foot asphalt overlay up to our entrance, as you can see there. In addition to that, we'll be adding enough asphalt in a lane to provide a right-hand turn lane onto US 70 heading west. So we feel like this would help mitigate our traffic as well as provide quite a bit better access for the residents that you actually use Ramblewood Drive now. So with that, I'm going to ask Nate Boquin to come up and talk a little bit about the traffic impact study and give you a little bit of perspective on that.
Good evening. My name is Nate Boquin, traffic engineer with Ramey Kemp & Associates. As Mr. Bizzle mentioned, we conducted traffic impact analysis for the development. When at the time of conducting that study, we were looking at 180 units. So now that the unit count has gone down to, I believe, 154, it makes our study that much more conservative. That traffic impact analysis was reviewed and approved with the 180 unit count by NCDOT and the town staff. And we did come up with these recommendations that you see here. One other thing I wanted to note was the southbound right turn lane that you see on Ramblewood Drive onto US 70. That's the volumes that we have on that movement are typically a lot lower than what you would typically have for that sort of recommendation. At the peak hour, we were seeing 41 southbound right turns there. So that's low enough volume that typically that would not be warranted and triggered. But in order to help separate out the left turns and right turns on that approach, we felt that it was appropriate to provide here to hopefully allow folks to turn out onto US 70 a little bit easier. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, or I'll turn it back over to Marty.
Questions or comments? Mr. Casey.
Yeah, that pretty much concludes our presentation, so we're here for questions.
Mr. Casey.
I have a question for the traffic engineer. It's not really a specific question, but one of my concerns is the residents turning left on the Highway 70 when they're trying to go into Clayton. Can you speak a little bit on that? Maybe how many cars, possible delay times, waiting, during peak times? And, just a little bit of discussion about that would be good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the southbound left turn, we were seeing roughly 32 peak hour cars. So that's roughly one every 2 minutes or so during your busiest time of the day, which would be the AM peak hour. We don't actually have the updated analysis that has this turn lane in it. That was something that was through conversations that we had with NCDOT and town staff after the preparation of the traffic impact analysis. But based on our analysis, that southbound right turn lane that we would be providing would provide quite a bit of improvements for that left turn as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Sims?
I have a comment and a question. My comment, first of all, I want to tell you guys thank you for, that's good to hear that you are working with the planning department as far as in reducing the density of the unit. So kudos to you guys on that. So as I'm looking at, this is probably for Marty, this question. As I'm looking at the Ramblewood Drive improvement, because I actually went out there. So in that silhouette, you're widening that right there as you turn in, right?
Right.
Do you know how much on each side?
It would be a symmetrical widening. Basically 20 foot of pavement is out there, so we are adding another, say, 10-foot lane. So we'll be basically adding another 10-foot lane, somewhat symmetrical, but we obviously know that the right turn lane is going to be more on the west side. As you can see, there's quite a bit of extra right-of-way out there now. And we've looked at the ditch section. Obviously, we've got to pull the ditch out further to accommodate the drainage. And we anticipate, based on what we've seen when we do our design, we'll be able to keep that new ditch in the right-of-way. In the event that we can't, we would obtain a a temporary construction easement from the adjacent property owner. But right now, based on that, it looks like we'll be able to keep it all within the right-of-way.
So that ditch is there for drainage?
Absolutely, right.
Okay,
And so we'll maintain that. Obviously, we'll need to move it over in order to get a shoulder and the ditch section, but we will definitely have to do that to accommodate the drainage.
And you've already had conversations with the residents that are right there, or?
We have not at this point, because we've not really designed it yet. At that point, we would know how much easement we might need if we do, and then it would be upon us, on us to actually go and obtain that easement to make sure it would work.
One last question. So just curious, why wouldn't you widen it all the way back at least to where the entrance is?
Basically, that's where basically the Ramblewood Drive is not in great shape. If you've been out there, it has not been properly maintained. And we knew that we have a secondary entrance, and we need a secondary entrance. So we want to make sure that we've got an adequate roadway for the residents to come out to US 70. So that's why we have taken upon that to add that asphalt overlay. And actually, in some places, it's really not 20 foot wide. We'll actually be widening what's actually there a little bit more, make sure we've got 20 foot asphalt.
So again, as I'm looking at this picture here, so it's right there where that entrance point is, it's not going to be widened right there? See, it looks like to me it's widened, then
yes, we taper back down to 20 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't want to widen it because that's going to be an exit right over in there.
Basically, what we have shown is the extra widening is to accommodate the right turn lane on the US 70, and then we taper back to a normal street section of 20 feet.
Okay.
Mr. Casey.
Well, first off, thank you for the presentation. One of the biggest concerns we get quite often is street parking in townhome developments. I like the fact that you widen certain sections of the streets and will designate on-street parking. Can you elaborate a little bit about the street widths in the community, and also for those sections with no parking, how will that be enforced?
Yes, trying to get back to that slide. I don't know what's happened here, Ben, but you're right. We, as we mentioned, we were showing 102 guest parking spaces. Some of that is on-street parking, as demonstrated, on the site plan. We actually have some streets that have parking on both sides, and we have a public street that has on the only on one side. But obviously, interior to the site there on the private streets, it is an HOA enforcement issue. And the owner has and will establish a HOA that ultimately it would be up to them to enforce it. One thing I did not mention, it's in our packet, that we have actually made some of these one-way access points mainly for fire truck access. So the fire truck would have a full 20-foot, wherever you go, they've got 20 feet to go. But it would be HOA enforcement action.
All right, thank you. How does this parcel of land comply with the current steep slope ordinance that was enacted by the town?
I'm sorry, what was it?
How was this parcel of land, how does it comply with the current steep slopes ordinance that we enacted by the town?
Right, we've not identified any steep slopes on this property.
And then one last question. Under the architectural standards, I like the fact that you're incorporating a mix of stone accent siding elements and also using fiber cement siding. You mentioned doing that on the front, however, on the side and rear, it said it may either be cement siding or vinyl. Being that these homes are kind of unique in design, you see a lot of the rear access points for them in the roadway. Some of these obviously are courtyard facing as well. I see there's an option between vinyl and cement on the rear and the side facing. Would the applicant be willing to make a condition that we put that cement siding goes on all sides of the house? We have discussed that, and you're absolutely correct. The condition is written
where they have the option on the sides to do vinyl siding or fiber cement. The applicant has authorized me to authorize another condition, if the council so chose, that we do hardy plank or fiber cement on all the sides. He is willing to do that.
Appreciate that concession, and I have no more questions.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this subject? No one else wishing to speak. I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to council for their discussion. Ms. Archer?
I had a couple comments. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you to staff too. I know this was the first one to go through, so that's never easy. I was a little concerned when I first saw the density. I'm glad to echo Mr. Sims as well that it came down to 7 units per acre. That is still higher than the 3 to 5 units that our current land use map would suggest. However, for the location of this development, you're right near Highway 70. You have a lot of commercial development right down the street. And for me, also, the fact that it's only 2 units per acre higher as opposed to double or triple, something like that, makes this an acceptable density for me for this particular parcel. I also had some concerns about the left turn, if people were trying to come out of there and make a left onto 70, so I did go myself and try it out a couple times. During the middle of the day and off-peak times, it actually wasn't that hard to get out of there and make a left. Of course, during the morning and the evening commute, it was more difficult. So what I did is I just took a right out of there, and you don't have to go far up 70 to get to the left that goes across the median there. So that helped ease my mind about, the safety concerns with the people getting onto Highway 70. I also wanted to just mention that I really liked the layout of the proposed development in terms of the existing residential that's nearby. Obviously, the fence and the landscaping help, but I also wanted to comment that I felt that the way that you laid it out with the street as well between existing residential and this new development really helps make a transition. I think that makes it a lot easier on existing neighborhoods. And so I just wanted to comment on that I thought that was a nice feature as well. And that's all I had.
All right. Anyone else? Mr. Casey?
I want to echo some of Councilwoman Archer's sentiments. I like in the neighborhood meeting notes, somebody asked about a fence around development, and I see that was added. I like the fact that the trash cans and the recycling bins will be stored within the garage, and that'll be enforced by the HOA or the property management company. I too appreciate the willingness to reduce the density down to 7 to be more compliant. I as well as feel this is a more, Highway 70 is more high density, makes sense for more high density. With this location being along a major corridor, I see retail, industrial, or I see a product like this. I appreciate you making the willingness to agree to the cement siding versus the vinyl. And, with that being said, I'm in favor of moving forward to this with the conditions set forth.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
A second.
We have a motion for adoption of the ordinance 2022-0304. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor.
Yes.
If I may, just a point of clarification with the town attorney. Since I believe you're adding the condition that the fiber cement siding should be on all sides. Just looking to the town attorney, is that something we need to have in writing prior to action, or can they move forward with action on that with the town staff updating that after the meeting?
I was looking at the materials to see, if I may, whether these.
Hit your button.
These days. Whether the fiberboard cement siding condition was a site plan element that Mr. Bizzle indicated that his client agreed to. Is that where it is found? It's not one of the conditions of the zoning approval. Is that the correct way?
No, it is one of the conditions of the zoning approval. There's There's a condition relating to the architectural design, and it states, I think the current condition states that fiber cement siding will be on the front, but the sides or rear may be fiber cement or vinyl, and it sounds like they've agreed to fiber cement all around. I just wanted the clarification of whether we need something in writing prior to action.
Thanks for that. Mayor, we tried to, since this was the first conditional use zoning motion for approval, we tried to make it a little bit easier, and rather than having to go back to the PowerPoint, we tried to put in a motion form, and I believe you all have been provided that. Conditions 1 through 5, I think, cover all the bases, so long as, if you're inclined, a motion to approve is subject to conditions 1 through 5. And I think that would need to be modified in paragraph 3 only to indicate that the conditions, and there's 16 conditions in the zoning approval, so it would be the modification of one of those 16 zoning conditions to address the fiberboard siding commitment that was made by the applicant, or modification that was made by the applicant. Also, I've just noticed the recordation approval, the master plan, and the conditional zoning district that's been adopted are to be recorded in the Johnston County Registry. So with those two slight changes to paragraph 3 in the proposed motion and paragraph 5 of the proposed motion, I think that would be sufficient for all the action you need to take and to incorporate in your motion this evening.
So you'd like me to read these conditions then?
Yes, if it's a motion to approve, just indicate subject to conditions 1 through 5 with the two slight modifications that we've just discussed.
You might have to repeat those modifications.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, could we clarify? Because I think you said condition 3 and 5 needed to be modified.
Condition 3 just referenced the zoning conditions, and it would be the zoning conditions as amended with respect to the fiberboard siding element. And condition number 5 would be modified to state that the approved master plan and the conditional zoning district are to be recorded, or the conditional zoning ordinance are to be recorded in the Johnston County Registry. Both of those items are to be recorded.
All right, you're going to have to repeat number 4. I was right number 3.
1 through 5 with these changes. Paragraph 3 notes the fiberboard siding. And paragraph 5, the master plan and the conditional zoning district shall be recorded in the Johnston County Registry.
All right, Mr. Mayor, after considering the recommendations of the Planning Board and Planning Director, I move to approve 2021-90-CMZ Ramblewood Village Ordinance 2022-0304, subject to the following conditions: that while the proposed conditional zoning is not in strict conformance with the town's future land use plan, upon consideration of the factors set forth in the UDC section 155.701J1-7, the proposed conditional rezoning is found to be reasonable and in the public interest, and that, number 2, pursuant to UDC section 155.705I3, staff is directed to place a note on the town's official zoning map that this zoning amendment has been adopted and that the map is deemed amended to conform to the rezoning, and that, number 3, the submitted master plan incorporated into this rezoning application as amended with respect to cement siding on the rear and sides is hereby approved. All conditions of master plan approval are incorporated this conditional rezoning, and number 4, all rezoning conditions and master plan conditions have been consented to by the applicant, and the applicant shall sign the same to indicate its consent to the conditions. And finally, number 5, the approved master plan should be recorded and the conditional zoning district recorded in the Johnston County Registry.
Second.
That was awesome. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now I'll entertain a motion about the adoption of the Resolution 2022-11 wastewater. Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve adoption of Resolution 2022-10 wastewater.
Second.
Just for the record, it's 2022-11. Oh, I'm dropped one. Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, good work. I'm going to call for about a 10-minute break. Thank you. Back to order. Up next under our public hearing is 2021-20 CZM Country Lane. Mr. Howell.
Good evening again, Council. So this is a request for rezoning of properties from PDR zoning district to conditional zoning residential to allow up to 299 single-family residential units at a density of up to 2.6 units per acre. The property size is just under 115 acres, and it's located on Country Lane, northeast of its intersection with Jasper Drive, as shown on the map on the screen. Here on the screen, you'll see the overall site plan. This is more of a bubble plan, master plan. So the areas that are shaded in that lighter orange color are where the lots would be, and the areas shaded in green or the darker gray would be areas where that are going to be preserved as either open space or natural features. Again, it's proposed residential use for up to 2.6 units per acre, a total of 299 units. They'll have full access on Country Lane and connections to Hunter Lane and Lynn Way, with water and sewer being provided by the town of Clayton and electric provided by Duke Energy, and they are surrounded by existing single-family residential. You'll see they're proposing 3 distinct phases for the development, and they've included the dimensional standards there on the slide for the individual lots. The interior lots will average 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. The lots along the boundary will be a minimum of 8,000 square feet lot size. They will, for transportation improvements, they will be constructing a right turn lane on Barber Mill Road at Amelia Church Road, a left turn lane on Amelia Church Road at Barber Mill Road, and a right turn lane and left turn lanes on Barber Mill Road at Country Lane. The project will comply with Town of Clayton Stormwater Ordinance. Public water is available on Country Lane. Public sewer will be extended through the site with the new pump station constructed by the development to serve the development, and electric services available from Duke Energy. They are providing approximately 45 acres of open space that will consist of protected wetlands, streams, riparian buffers, and floodplains, and as well as neighborhood amenities, including a fitness recreation center and additional amenities per condition. They're also, by condition, will be required to dedicate a greenway and public utility easement along the, I believe it's the eastern edge of their site. Landscaping buffer, they will provide a 15-foot wide type C landscaping buffer with opaque screening, and street trees meeting the UDC requirements will also be provided. They have provided example elevations that were attached to the agenda packet, and they will follow the 2006 design guidelines regarding architectural standards. This project is consistent with the 2040 growth plan, as well as also consistent with the 2045 growth plan. This project, like the last one, was submitted prior to the adoption of the 2045 growth plan, so we are looking at it from the 2040 growth plan. 2040 calls for this area to be low-density residential up to 3 units per acre. They are under that at 2.6. The subject property is suitable for the development. The current zoning is planned development residential, which is no longer in use. It was previously approved as a planned development that was never constructed. The proposed conditional district permits only residential uses, and the applicant is proposing to connect to public water and extend public sewer to serve the development. The surrounding area has residential uses, and the proposed development will provide suburban-style residential development. The schools listed in the application packet as serving this development, only one of them is on the 2021-2022 cap school. It's for Johnson County, and that is Clayton High. The development will be accessed by Country Lane, Hunter Lane, and Lynn Way. Hunter Lane and Lynn Way will both be cross-access connections through existing roads, and with additional public roads constructed internal to the development. The development will provide wastewater treatment through public sewer and a new pump station constructed to serve the development, and it is subject to the town wastewater allocation policy. So once again, if this project is approved, you'll also be approving a wastewater allocation for this project. Water supply, public water is available along Country Lane. and the development will follow the town stormwater ordinance, and all town ordinances, procedures, and approvals will be followed, so legal purposes are not contravened. Finally, there, with the 15-foot landscape buffer with opaque screening and preserving existing wetland streams and floodplains, and the condition requiring that lots adjacent to existing development will be a minimum of 8,000 square feet in size, staff does not believe there will be adverse impact on adjoining property owners, and with the imposed condition, there should be no detriment to the general public. Again, we also have the master plan approval criteria that's on the screen. Staff believes applicant has met this criteria through the master plan narrative, and proposed conditions. Once again, I'll have Assistant Town Engineer Jonathan Jacobs come up to speak to the wastewater allocation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jonathan Jacobs, Assistant Town Engineer. Here we have another version of a graph that we've seen earlier tonight, outlining our allocation availability of the town as we reach our capacity limits of our current wastewater treatment infrastructure. So as mentioned earlier this evening, staff is recommending allocation based on a schedule. The applicant for Country Lane is requesting a total allocation of 76,750 gallons per day based on their current proposed use. And that timing is critical on the two projects I mentioned earlier today, the pump station being constructed at the Little Creek Water Reclamation Facility and the transmission line to the existing Neuse River 2 pump station to provide an interim solution to our Raleigh capacity that you all have approved recently. So with that being said, staff is recommending that council approve allocation based on a schedule as outlined on the resolution before you, and the earliest that would be available is January of 2023, which is when the town would sign the allocation permits for the state. And the applicant did meet the scoring requirement as outlined in the wastewater allocation policy, despite the necessity of a new pump station for the town.
Again, some considerations for Town Council, that you shall consider recommendation of the Planning Board and Planning Director, as well as adopt a written statement of reasonableness and consistency. You shall approve with conditions, or deny the conditional zoning district, and the applicant must agree to any changes in conditions prior to the council decision. And finally, the conditional zoning district master plan and narrative will be recorded with Johnson County if approved. Those run with the land and do not expire. Staff recommends approval of 2021-20 CZM Country Lane Conditional Zoning District and Master Plan, subject to the 24 recommended conditions of approval. The Planning Board unanimously recommended approval of the Conditional Zoning District as well on February 28th, based on the proposed application meeting criteria for approval and with the inclusion of the recommended conditions of approval agreed to by the applicant. And the Planning Board also adopted the consistency statement seen on your screen, speaking to the fact that the 2040 growth plan does call for this area at a gross density of up to 3 dwelling units per acre. The conditions of approval are listed here on your screen. I will not go through all of them. It's very similar to type of ones you saw on the last project. I will point out condition 7 requires a minimum 45 acres of the site will be comprised of open space, and at least 50% of the required recreation open space will be part of a contiguous parcel. And then we have conditions 9 and 10 speaking to the 2 of the 3, or speaking to some of the additional amenities that will be provided. Condition 11 is requires a 2-lane median divided residential collector street to provide access from the northern phases to the southern phase. And that is specifically to address a concern with fire code, providing 2 means of access in the event of emergencies. This will do that while also minimizing environmental impacts. You'll see there we condition in the roadway improvements. Also require that no more than 30 certificates of occupancy will be issued within the development for the second required access point as constructed. You have the condition regarding the public sewer system and the pump station. And condition 15 requires the development to dedicate a greenway and public utility easement along the entire eastern property boundary for the future construction of a greenway that is shown on our growth plan, and sewer utilities. They do have some flexibility for final location, and they also have the flexibility to decide whether if they want to construct the greenway and dedicate a separate public utility easement, or if they want to dedicate one easement for both and have the town and provide a payment in lieu to allow the town to come in and construct the greenway at a later time. Again, you have the condition regarding the landscape buffer, type C landscape buffer with the opaque screening. The development will be providing minimum of 30 overflow parking spaces spaced throughout the development, built to the standard dimensions for parking space in the UDC. And final condition, to the extent that any conflict between the master plan narrative and these conditions shall control. And then finally on your screen, you do have the statement of consistency and reasonableness. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I do know the applicant's representatives are here and prepared to speak, as well as members of the public.
Mr. Casey.
I have a question, Mr. Ben. I see that the surrounding zoning is RE, and then also R10. What is the density per acre for the surrounding?
So R10 is roughly that requires minimum lot sizes of 10,000 square feet. So that's roughly 4 dwelling units per acre, give or take. And RE requires minimum lot sizes of 20,000 square feet, or 20,000 square feet if public water or public sewer is available, or 40,000 square feet if public water nor public sewer are not available. So again, that's between 1 and 2 dwelling units per acre.
Okay, and thank you. Also, on the wastewater allocation criteria sheet, I see that the applicant is getting 5 points for overflow parking, but this is being considered a low density or medium density development. I just don't understand what the purpose of overflow parking is on a low density or a medium density development.
Again, it's the biggest purpose for the overflow parking is to try and keep vehicles from parking on the street. With our standard street widths, when you have parking on one or both sides, the streets can still get a little bit narrow. So this provision of the overflow parking will allow for visitors and others in the neighborhood to continue to park off-street. The minimum that the town requires for a residential home is to handle 2 vehicles between either the driveway or the garage. So the overflow parking will allow for, families with more than 2 vehicles, or if they have visitors over, it'll allow them to have a place to park without having to park on the street.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Ms. Archer.
So, thank you, Ben. Could you clarify that was a 10,000 square foot lot in R10?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. That concludes staff report.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm about to open up the public hearing for this. And if you are wishing to speak on this, would you please raise your hand? Because I felt like, thank you. First, we're going to hear from the applicant as a request from council. Second, because I knew we had a large number of people who wish to speak on this subject, obviously you'll be giving your time to speak for the record. The council would like to request you keep your comments to 3 minutes. All right. So with that, we'll bring the applicant up first to address council, and then we will have the rest of the public hearing to add any comment.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Brandy Vega with Withers Ravenel. This evening, I have with me the project engineer, Arnaldo Echeverria, also with Withers Ravenel, traffic engineer, Brittany Chase, with Exalt Engineering, and Ed Lynch with Mungo Homes. We want to thank the Town of Clayton staff for their assistance with the project. As Ben mentioned, the property is zone PDR with an expired site plan, and we are seeking a conditional zoning for single-family residential. The parcel was annexed into Clayton city limits in 2006. We first came in with a rezoning in 2020. We were asked to wait until the adoption of your 160D amendments so we could offer conditions. So with that, we have offered conditions that would limit uses. And such, you see that the site only proposes to include single-family homes, an amenity center, recreation opportunities for the residents, as well as a greenway easement. The greenway will either be constructed or a fee in lieu will be provided. The transportation improvements will focus on two key intersections, the Barber Mill and Country Lane intersection, as well as Amelia Church Road and Barber Mill intersection. We have been proactive in offering conditions that have addressed concerns raised by staff, and together we have mutually agreed to the conditions that we believe will make this a better development for the town of Clayton and for future residents of the subdivision. I do want to keep it brief, so I'm going to turn it over to the project engineer, Arnaldo Echevarria. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. And my name is Arnaldo Echevarria. I'm a professional engineer in the state of North Carolina, and I'm the project manager for this project. I will try to just mention a few items that may not have been already covered by Ben or Brandy. And for the record, my address is 5237 Copain Cove in Fuquay, Varina. So it's been a little while since we started the zoning process on this property, which has given us the opportunity to do quite a bit of due diligence on the site. We have completed wetlands and stream and buffer delineations, which have been processed through the state and the Army Corps of Engineers. So we're basing our design off of those. Topographic survey has been performed on the site, as well as the boundary survey. We have initiated some of the preliminary design, which includes study for the stormwater controls on the site based on handling the runoff to 1 year, 2 year, 10 year, and 25-year pre-developed conditions with a check for 100 year to provide enough freeboard from the top of dams proposed. Currently looking at 5 stormwater control measures on the entire site, 4 of them along the eastern property boundary where the stream is located. Erosion controls are going to be provided during construction, obviously, which include best practices for perimeter controls, diversions, bypass for construction of culvert crossings, as well as the use of permanent and temporary sediment basins. And stabilization guidelines will be followed based on the NCG 01 permitting and certificate of compliance. The development team has also submitted a request to the State Historic Preservation Archaeological Division for review and recommendations. That report package will also be submitted to the Tuscarora Nation for their review and recommendations as well. Threatened and endangered species survey has been completed and no concerns were identified on the site. The report is being finalized and will be submitted within the next 2 weeks. The development is providing a pump station that will be sized for the upstream basin and will also provide a sanitary sewer easement for upstream properties for future extensions of the gravity system, along with an easement for a future greenway. Traffic calming devices are going to be proposed at the connection to Lynn Drive. And that's about it to avoid redundancy, but I'm here to answer any questions that my service may be requested. Thank you.
We do have a question.
There are questions.
Sir.
I see on the average lot size listed on the supporting documentation, but what's the minimum lot size for the neighborhood? There's no minimum listed.
Lot sizes?
Yes, you put the average lot.
6,000. We have currently 6,000 as the minimum.
So 6,000 is the minimum lot size. There's no.
That's correct.
There's no lot size smaller than 6,000.
No, it's absolutely the minimum.
Okay. Of the 115 acres, what's the buildable acres within that parcel?
It's close to 50 acres, give or take.
Okay, on the site plan, it said 47 is devoted to single-family lots. How many lots are you proposing to build on the site?
So we're requesting approval for up to 299, but I can tell you we're close to 280 at the time.
So roughly 50 acres and 299 or 280 lots?
Yes.
Okay. Are these going to be slab-style houses or a mixture of slab and crawl space?
For the most part, will be slab houses, but subject to how the site grading turns out.
So is that a yes or no? I'm sorry.
We're too early in the stages at the moment, but as of now, the plan is to build as many slab houses as allowed by the grading of the site.
Okay. Does this parcel meet the current steep slopes ordinance that was passed by the town?
When this is about a couple months ago, we submitted a permit choice request to abide by the recent text change that steep slopes are not part of the definition of the RCA.
Do you have a preliminary site grading plan for the project yet?
Do we have a preliminary grading plan?
Yes, sir.
We do. We don't have anything as part of the package for the rezoning master plan, but we're working to get one completed concurrently, pretty much.
Okay. Sorry, a couple more questions. I see you're building a neighborhood in Wake Forest called The Preserve at Kitchen Farms. Is this going to be a similar product? Just kind of, I know that has a mixture of slab and crawl space homes with basements, and it also has some architectural features like cement siding. Are we going to see this type of feature in this community?
I'm not the most familiar person with the development in Wake Forest, but from the little bit I've heard, it's a different product. So on that development, there's some smaller lot, single-family homes that have a garage in the rear and then work with grade a little bit different than situation that we are proposing on this project. So I wouldn't say they are comparable necessarily.
You said they are? I'm sorry.
They're not.
They're not, okay. You said that there's some amenities being provided by the development. I see a 1 acre site where it said fitness center, recreation center. There's also a list of amenities like pool, cabana, splash pad, playground, or clubhouse, but it says you're going to choose at least one. Has one been chosen yet, or is it?
Not yet.
Okay, so none. Okay. Likewise, it said choose 2 of the following amenities. It said a great lawn, soccer lawn, picnic shelter, pavilion, fire pit, or dog park. Has anything been chosen at this point in time?
No, not at this time. That's why we have 2 sections of options to choose from. The intent being splitting some of the more the amenities that stand out the most, and then other ones just in the smaller pocket park locations.
Okay, and lastly, I guess I can understand where the question's going to come. But there's 5 types of plans listed, but in the statement, it says that you have the right to add or remove the plans offerings at this particular development. So I see the 5 plants listed, but those are subject to change too.
I believe the intent for the subject to change statement is more so for the elevations that will be provided, but also, we're just looking at rezoning now. Between now and the time of building permits, the market could change, so it's a way to build some flexibility that we can come back and be able to provide a product that will be in accordance to what the market is at the time.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Mr. Sims?
Yes, so you mentioned erosion control methods. So at the village at Little Creek, you guys have, at that particular subdivision, you guys have riprap channels that allow for stormwater runoff. Of course, to mitigate some of the erosion. Is that something that you're looking at that will be placed in this area here?
So the stormwater control ponds will always have a riprap dissipator at the outfall, as well as the inflow pipe locations. During erosion control measures, there will be riprap pretty much at every low spot along the perimeter of the project. If you're referring about the riprap between the lots to offset some of the steep grades, this project, as of right now, is not anticipated to have such steep grades between the rear of the lots. So I find it hard to believe that we'll have to go in that direction on this one.
I'm sorry, it's me. You said you will not have to go in that direction?
Not necessarily between the lots that are going to be back-to-back. If that's the situation you're referring from the villages at Little Creek, then I don't think that's going to be an issue on this one. It's not the most attractive thing. Obviously, we don't want to go there if we don't have to, and I don't anticipate that being the case now. At every location where we're discharging concentrated flows, it will absolutely be provided.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Ms. Archer?
Thank you for hanging in there with us with all of our questions. I wanted to ask a couple of things about traffic first. So when I was reviewing the package here, it was talking about 299 homes. It sounds like maybe now you're down around 280 is what it sounds like now. When I went out there, my natural inclination was to enter and exit through Hunter Way. So looking at the traffic impact analysis, I see that you made a lot of other improvements, but there was nothing done at Hunter Way. So I was just curious what conclusion you guys came to about that, and if you thought of doing anything on that street as well.
So there was no recommendations from congestion management nor the town of Clayton in terms of Hunter's Way improvements. Therefore, nothing is proposed at that location at this time.
I understand that. I guess I just want to make sure that I communicate to everyone that, I think myself driving on it, I feel like that is going to be the natural route that a lot of people are going to take in and out of there should that subdivision get approved. I also have a concern about the Barber Mill and Amelia Church intersection. I understand that a left-hand turn lane is proposed to be added there. Again, this is a road that I went and drove during a couple different times, and for those of you who haven't been on the road, that particular intersection involves a somewhat of a curvature as well as a hill. I think the left-hand turn lane is great, but I'm really concerned with the potential of 280 more homes, especially as many people as we have that commute to the Triangle, trying to get home from work that direction. And so the left-hand turn lane is welcome, but I really just want to express that I feel like there should be a stoplight there. And I know that wasn't part of the TIA, but I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
Here's Brittany Chase with Excel Engineering, the traffic consultant for the development. She may have some intel on that and be able to answer better than I can ever do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. I am Brittany Chase with Exalt Engineering, 304 West Millbrook in Raleigh. We did take a look at the signal as part of the original traffic study, but based on DOT's and the town's review, they deemed that eastbound left turn lane and the southbound right turn lane the more appropriate measures for adding capacity. The heavy eastbound right movement is a concern, and that's, without getting too detailed regarding traffic analysis, right turn volumes are not the ones that typically trigger signal installation. It's more the left turn. And since we are contributing most to that eastbound left and southbound right, those are the turn lanes that we are adding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I understand there are a lot of things that go into those analyses, but just as a person who lives here and drives through there, you know, it's something I at least wanted to ask about because I do feel like that intersection is dangerous as it is, but you know, we're getting there. In terms of traffic, I had one more thing. I don't know if that would be you or not, but were any traffic calming measures considered for either Hunter Way or Lynn Drive for the existing residents there?
That is not something we typically do in a traffic impact analysis. I can tell you that there is plenty of capacity available on Hunter Way. I believe it's more in the town ordinance for when traffic measures are considered for a neighborhood based on existing traffic going through a neighborhood.
Thank you for that. Almost done here. To touch on the steep slope issue that Councilmember Casey had mentioned. So I do understand, you know, the permit choice situation, and obviously that was well within your right. However, I just wanted to express a strong feeling against that, just because of the fact that this council did, as soon as we got back, you know, after we were elected, we did vote to put those measures back in, and for very specific reasons, dealing with flooding and stormwater and that sort of thing. Is there any chance that you might have a map showing where steep slopes would be on that parcel?
I believe in the presentation Ben showed earlier, it's not explicitly identified, but we could probably look at it and point it out.
Okay, thank you. Do you know if you, I mean, was protection of steep slopes, certain steep slopes, part of your consideration for this plan, or do you have any ways you are kind of protecting them other than stormwater capacity?
So there are some explicit guidelines. Once you exceed certain slopes, then you have to stabilize a lot sooner than you do the rest of the site during grading operations, and those will definitely be implemented. The steep slopes, if you look at the map on screen, are mainly located along the eastern side of the property. That's actually showing north to the top of the sheet, so it'll be along the right side. And that's pretty much where we're focused on proposing our stormwater control measures. So flooding on this development, it's something that we've taken very seriously. So on the map, you can see the lighter blue areas are our proposed stormwater control measures. Since this ball plan had, the site has gone through some changes, and we are now proposing 4 along the eastern boundary of the site.
Okay, thank you. I do have concerns about the steep slopes out there. Looking at the topographic map that was in the packet, the way that our ordinance is written, and again, I know you have permit choice, is if a slope is 5,000 square feet of contiguous area and connected to another RCA, then that entire slope would actually be protected. So I guess without that specific map in place, I don't know that you've run that analysis on that property for the 5,000 contiguous square feet.
We actually did earlier in the process, before the text change had been approved.
Okay, I appreciate that. That is something, and we have obviously further questioning and things to happen here, but that is something I would like to see, just because that is with flooding and other stormwater issues in the area. Would be nice to see exactly how that overlays with the proposed development. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Casey.
Sorry, I have 2 more questions. So earlier in your presentation, you mentioned a traffic calming device on Lynn Drive, but you did not mention one on Hunter's Way. Is that correct? Because Hunter's Way is the more prominent street that stretches the entire neighborhood, and having driven down to this area, Hunter's Way definitely seems to be a very populated street with a lot of people walking, a lot of cars, a lot of family neighborhoods, houses.
So we looked at it, and we also took in consideration comments from the neighborhood meeting. There were concerns pointed out during that meeting regarding Lynn Drive specifically. I am aware of some children in the area that could be deaf, and totally understand the traffic calming situation. We did not intentionally propose something on Hunter's Way due to the fact that it's a shorter stem from our development, and traffic along there at that location are probably already reducing speed because of the stop sign situation. But if we had to go there, I'm sure that would be no issue whatsoever to provide additional traffic calming.
Okay, so that is something that a condition you'd be comfortable with. Okay.
Yeah.
Second question, and thank you, Councilwoman Archer, for the questions on the slopes. Is this going to be a mass graded site? I know that there's a lot of topography on this land.
Absolutely.
Looking at the topography map. Okay, so there is? Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, further questions, I'm still going to be available to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, again, this is a public hearing, and I'll now continue the public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak, please step forward and state your name for the record. And remember, the council has requested no more than 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sam Salim here at 3015 Equine Lane. You've all seen me before. I'll make this real quick as best I can.
Hey, Sam, can you bend the microphone down?
That time didn't count. So I'm here to share some thoughts, concerns, ideas, and solutions for the town, for the developer, and for the residents, especially that live on the eastern side, and for Indian heritage culture. And there's 5 concerns. Cultural, historical, sacred heritage, Tuscaroran nation is something that I brought up several times since 2006. But it never had to ever go that far. But we have some representatives from the United Nations General Assembly with us that have addressed the General Assembly 3 times, and they'll talk. Water quality, food, and flood concerns in the creek, number 2. I have experienced, I'm the house that's, I'm the property, 5 acres, that's right at the front end, and David is about 3 acres at the very back. In 2010, there was a, it's called it was a passage dam failure from Lynn Road, 2010, that flooded my garage up here, and nobody did anything about it, though I reached out and reached out. I've got emails and copies in this presentation. Oh, can you hand out that package, Michael? Okay, so anyway, I've got copies. This was addressed back then, and hopefully it'll be addressed right. It was addressed but not fixed. 3, steep slopes, runoff, impervious surface. I think someone said that there's going to be an overflow parking. That's all impervious surface. 299 homes is what I heard. And just to give you an idea, there's a comparison. What is it, 50 homes and 50 acres is right next to it. So that just gives you an idea of the disparity, and an elevation disparity too, with a slope that only goes one direction. This is real simple. Water only goes one direction. So That's number 3, flora, biota, endangerments. I've got all sorts of information on that, but let's fly by to, this is the problem visually. You've got the Tuscarora trail trees that point to each other with structural walls and burial sites that go in a circle, and they can attest to all this. Slopes that have protected flora, biota. The runoff and the hydrology and the erosion is already destroying, has already destroyed, because we took pictures over the last several years, but the sedimentation that has reduced haggis fly larvae. Diener has been out there and said, yes, this is blue line, perennial stream. You've got amazing water quality. That was back in '07 when we did this. But that's changing, but it shouldn't change. And then you've got hydrology, ecology, and flooding, such as myself and others that have experienced all this. Tuscarora Nation, Timothy Tuscarora Jacobs is right here. As I mentioned, he's addressed the UN General Assembly. And there's a couple of video links. I'm not going to use my time up on the video links. They're a minute and a half each, but I can email them to you. So this is Timothy Tuscarora Jacobs, and he has Robert Chavis with him, who's also a representative. He was brought to us by the radio celebrity John Kane, who is actually doing a radio show on this today. And he's going to go stir up Tuscarora Nation because of what's going on here. And as you can see, yes, we're going to help you whatever you need. Also, with the connections and the past experiences, G.K. Butterfield, NC Legislature, wants to help, as well as Milton Fitch. And they are one click away from working with my fine friends here, fine new friends. So yes, this is making national attention, and it will. Here's a couple of maps on Tuscarora. I'll let them talk about that. I'll go straight to, here's one of the trail trees. This is massive. It's 6 feet wide. Michael, stand up. Where you at? Okay, see, that's the guy in that picture. Okay, if you put him lengthwise, that's thicker than he is tall. All right, this is hundreds of years old, and this tree is on my property, well, behind my property, and behind David's property is another similar tree with a structural wall like a fortress, something you've probably never seen. I've got a video of it. You can see it. You can go out there and look at it. It's a beautiful structural wall built by Tuscaroraans. These two trees point towards each other. We discovered that. One at the rock wall and one at one end, one at the other. They point at each other. So there's certainly something going on there, which we've been educated about what that really means by these gentlemen. But the point is, they point to each other for a reason, because of the heritage, the culture that started there before any of us were here. Okay, they understood the beauty and the natural amazingness of that spot. It's just an amazing spot. You have to visit it. But it's not going to be amazing if we stick 300 homes on like penny-sized lots next to a subdivision that has, I've got 5 acres. I mean, no one has less than an acre per home. So it's a different type of, and we have a better roadway system to get out of our neighborhood than this place does. This place is just strangled. Hunter Way, it's strangled as it is, without anything there. The school right there, that intersection, Barbara Mill and 42 with the school right there, that's just gonna be, just forget about it. People gonna skip school. Or, unfortunately, there's gonna be more pedestrians here. Here's a map of the tree number 1 and tree number 2, my property, Sam, David, his property, and they point at each other. But as you can see, that is deep behind, that is above where that roadway is from the other development, which is what they're proposing to connect, which means it's even beyond the crest of the top of the highest point, which is about 60 feet elevation. So if it's beyond, it's going to disturb it. It's going to, and by the way, they want everything, all the stormwater to go to the creek. So that's what I keep hearing over the years since 2005, that's been everyone's solution, is to point source it or filter it a little bit, but have it go in the creek. And the creek used to be, we used to go swimming. My daughter used to go, I think she's here. My daughter used to go swimming. It was like 4 feet deep. Now, it's like this. because of the sedimentation that's built up. And they point to each other. So there's tree number 1. There are 7 to 8 mounds that circle the same distance from that tree each direction. Mounds. And I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about, but I know what I'm looking at, but these gentlemen can really explain. And there's the tree at David's part of the map there. It's about 4 feet wide. There's a rock wall. Oh, so Michael has his own broadcasting. I love that picture. But, you know, he's an amazed person looking at it. There's a picture of the wall right there. The video zooms in a little bit more. I get real close to the rock wall. And there's artifacts, and he wants to bring in ECU to do some sort of x-ray thing, which he can fund himself. So there's a lot of amazing structure on that end, and then there's sacred mounds on the other end, and they point at each other. So right here, this map on the left, superimposed it on top of the map the developer's been using. As you can see, tree number 1 and tree number 2, opposite ends. The wall is at tree number 2, and the mounds are around tree number 1. However, they're both either on or beyond that blue roadway that's supposed to connect with, I believe that's Hunter's Way. So from a solution perspective, plan beyond that. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not a designer or planner, but I would say less homes and move it back. That's how I would start off with this project. Instead of making it Cary-like, because everybody in Clayton is in Clayton because they don't like Cary. That's why I moved here 25 years ago, or Durham. And we have to outthink Cary, not think like Cary. We have to outthink Cary. So there's things we could do with what this recent find is all about, and they're going to tell you some of the ideas they have. All right, so let me get to the...
Yeah, I'm going to give you 1 minute because you completely disconnected from my request to keep this at 3 minutes because we have multiple people.
Should not make the developer stay at 3 minutes. They stay for several minutes.
It doesn't matter. I run the show, and this council makes requests, and this council has asked for 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm done though, Jody. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. And I would like to stop it right there and let...
Thank you.
Joanne Escanane, Mayor and Town Council. What I just said in my language was greetings, and we hope you are well. What I'd like to start out with is I'm an elder at 67 of the Tuscarora Nation. After reviewing these videos and pictures, this is a sacred site. We are well aware that the Tuscarora were the most prominent tribe once in North Carolina. All the other tribes in North Carolina were subjugated to the Tuscarora, whether they liked it or not. Tuscarora was a trade language, whether you were European, Native, or what have you. With that said, there are federal laws covering this site. This site looks like it has a mound burial site, which does need to be checked by radar or x-ray or radiology. And there are several laws that cover this. There's a public law 95-341, which is a federal law covering sacred sites and protection for sacred sites and cultural sites for Native people or Native Americans. We like to be called indigenous or Native. The other law is what was up on the screen, is the Native American Repatriation and Sacred and Rights Act. And I may have got it mixed up a little bit, but anyway, what it pertains to, it's another federal law that actually, there it is, there's the law there, that again protects sacred sites and lands. If you go across the nation and even to Hawaii, developers have had to take in consideration these aspects of sacred sites, burial sites, or ceremonial sites, or cultural sites that are ancestral sites. We had what was called the upper towns and the lower towns in North Carolina. The upper towns spread all the way to the mountains on the north side of North Carolina. Even the town of Cary in May of 2021 said, well, we are celebrating 150 years, but the first inhabitants here, in their newsletter and their report of their festival, was that the first inhabitants were Tuscarora. So if you want to know why Tuscarora were here, it's pretty evident in history. There's another law that's actually by the Department of Defense. Oh, by the way, not only am I elder of Tuscarora Nation, I'm a disabled veteran of the Naval Commander. And the Department of Defense and the Interior Department with the Energy Department and the Agriculture Department in December the 5th, 2012, also made mandates for all of their departments of any kind of development, whether it's federal or non-federal, that you have to take in consideration these sites. If you build anywhere close to these sites have to be mandatory, considered, and the development has to either work around it, not develop at all, or do some kind of consideration of the site. This site in particular looks like a burial site with a village site next to it. Those trees are what we call saddle trees. We would bend those trees and tie them down to mark territory or mark burial sites or sacred sites. So what I would say, not just the laws that cover from the federal level to cover city, county, state, and federal level, but a humanitarian and a humanity law. This is a sacred ancestral site that's very important. The Tuscarora people have a rich history that is intertwined with the history of North Carolina. We helped to build North Carolina. We actually helped build the United States. Look up the Washington papers. George Washington was a general in 1741 to 1799, his papers. He asked and begged the Tuscarora of North Carolina to fight against the French. So we actually helped develop even the United States. So we'd asked to be considered to have a talk with the developers and consider what needs to be done here to protect the site and have maybe ECU come out with radar or radiation or radioactive machines to determine what burial sites may be there and what have you. We know it's a significant site, though, just by seeing the photographs, and we're aware of our upper towns being in this location. Any questions from the panel?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Timothy Jacobs of the Tuscarora Nation. As my Robert Chavis just said earlier, we know for a fact that that site out there in question is a sacred site of the Tuscarora Nation people. The white quartz we used in ceremonies, the bent trees, we bent those trees to mark our sacred sites as related to burial sites, grave sites. I've been working with Milton Tubby Fitch for a number of years, and he's a very big advocate for the Tuscarora Indian Nation, along with G.K. Butterfield, along with Representative Don Davis, which we did not even know about this until Saturday, until Mr. Sam called me and brought it to my attention. So that's the reason we haven't been here earlier, to represent ourselves in this situation. The mounds or the hills that they speak of, our ancestors would always build mounds. We would always create mounds for our protection and also for the burial of our ancestors. Mr. Sam also pointed out to me that they have found pottery there, that they have found arrowheads there, spearheads there made out of quartz. We would do that for ceremonial purposes, particularly for our warriors who were killed. Clayton, North Carolina is our home, so we're not strangers here. Johnson County is our home, so we're not strangers here because our ancestors lived here. And what we're asking you to do is not to go against us in a way where we have to come up here with 300 or 400 Indians and protest, because we don't want to do that. We have done that before. What we're trying to do is build an alliance with you. We're asking you to allow us to have East Carolina University School of Archaeology to come in here and to do an actual excavation of that site. Like Robert Chavis said, they do have equipment that can scan the ground up to 8 to 10 feet beneath the surface, and they can find whatever is underneath that ground. Imagine if your ancestors have been here for the last 200 or 300 years, and your ancestors killed my ancestors. Your ancestors removed my ancestors from this land. Your ancestors enslaved my ancestors, because during the Tuscarora War, our people were taken as slaves. We were sent to Port Royal, South Carolina from here from what was called at that time Bertie County, North Carolina. Johnston County was cut out of Bertie County historically. And so we're asking you not to look at us as being someone that's trying to infringe upon a development. We're asking you to help us preserve our history, our culture, and if our ancestral remains are there, then they need to be found and not to be disturbed or either allow them to be removed, because East Carolina University has done this for years now. If you're familiar with Snow Hill, North Carolina, there's an area there called Fort Nehoroka. Several years ago, after one of the massive hurricanes here in North Carolina, 982 of my ancestors were found there. Women and men and children were found that they were butchered there because the work that has been done proved that those people were burned alive during the Tuscarora War. And the Tuscarora villages were only a day's walk from each other. So when you left one Tuscarora village, you could go to another Tuscarora village in one day or half a day's walk, as they say. And so we're asking you just to allow us time, just time, to get East Carolina University, the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences out here to do an excavation of this property without disturbing the ancestral remains, because Mr. Sam and many others have already shown me the photographs, videos, and those bent trees are what we call indicators of ancestral lands. The quartz rocks is what we call indicators of ancestral burial grounds and burial sites. Most of the time, our ancestors did not even bury a person in a hole. What we would do is we would always cremate our ancestors. And so even at Fort Nehoroka in Snow Hill, North Carolina, there were mounds found near the property. And when they began to excavate, the East Carolina began to excavate those mounds, they found corn, they found flintlock rifles that were under the ground, they found swords that were under the ground in mounds just like the one out there in question. And so what we're asking you to do is to please just allow us this time. It's not gonna hurt the developer, it's not gonna hurt this town, but it's gonna be able to enhance your status here across the United States by people recognizing your town has been one of the sites of an historical Tuscarora village. Our history and our presence predates America. We predate America. My DNA is older than America. And so if it was one of your ancestral remains or your ancestral lands, how would you feel? How would you feel if someone came in and told you you had to move your church, or you had to dig up your graves out here in these communities and move those grave sites? So we're not trying to interfere or intervene in anything in a negative way. We're just asking for preservation. Because Fort Bragg, North Carolina, has found Tuscarora remains, and they invited us to come out and take part in meetings where we were able to resolve those issues with them. So they still kept the land, but we got our ancestors back. The same thing is happening, excuse me, the same thing happened at Snow Hill, North Carolina, where when the remains were first found, they invited us to come up, and we took part in the excavations of those ancestors. Can you imagine realizing that 982 of your ancestors have been butchered and burned alive during the Tuscarora War? That's what happened here in Johnston County, because when the colonials come in, they destroyed every village that the Tuscarora people had. They butchered our people. They enslaved our people. They took our women.
We're going to have to stay focused back on the time. I've been gracious to you too, sir, so I'm going to give you 1 minute to sum up your thoughts.
Well, my summary is this. Allow us the time that I've asked for. Allow us the time that Mr. Sam and others have also asked for, to allow us to request the East Carolina University and others, and even the Smithsonian Institute of the American Indian, they will also want to come in and take part in this excavation. The Tuscaroras of New York will want to come in and take part in this excavation. The Tuscaroras of Canada will also want to come in and take part in this excavation. So it's not going to hurt your town, but it's going to enhance your town and its reputation as being a humanitarian that we're asking you to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I want to apologize to you for being confrontational. I just want to make sure these two men, Mr. Chavis and
Mr. Jacobs had a chance to really talk about what's so important. What I'm most passionate about is the village.
Can I get you to begin by stating your name for the record?
I'm sorry, David Cawthorn. I live at 3109 Horseshoe Lane on the backside of that property on the other side of the creek. When Mr. Jacobs and I talked earlier, he said he is absolutely sure there was a village up there. They don't just come and bury the remains of their people somewhere and leave somewhere else. There was a village there. So it's really important. That's the thing I'm most passionate about, but they've already talked about that. I'm going to talk about some other things like the creek that's back there that's a blue line stream. That creek, before the last development, it was when Lynn Drive was developed, there was a retention pond there. Retention ponds work, right? Look at Highway 42 where they're widening it, and look at the Neuse River where it's filled with sand from the work from that. Retention ponds don't work. They may follow the rules, but they don't work. And they have a retention pond in the flood. The biggest retention pond they have is in the floodplain of our little creek back there. We've had rain so bad that our Sam's garage was filled, but we're a little higher up than he is, and our basement was almost filled with water after a big storm. If there's a big storm, that creek overflows, and it's going to overflow that retention pond, and it's going to pour sand all into the creek. Now, when we were back before all this stuff happened, there used to be black mussels all in that creek. There used to be herons. There was one that lived right behind our house because they were eating the black mussels that were in the creek. And there were just hundreds of crawdads. They're not there anymore because there's not rocks for them to hide under. It's just sand now because of that other development. Right? We used to have an otter. I have a picture of an otter. I couldn't find it. We would see otter tracks in the sand next to our creek that's 30 yards from our house. We would see otter tracks. Amazing. And we got a picture of one walking through the yard. We're starting to see a couple of mussels come back here and there where there are still some rocks, but there's big holes that used to be full of fish are now full of sand. Where it used to be 4 feet deep, it's this deep from that retention pond, and that was away from the creek in a small neighborhood. There's not, off of Lynn Drive, there's not but, 12 or 15 houses? Then you're going to put so many houses on top of this hill and rush most of it down the steep hill into a pond right next to the creek? It's ridiculous. That's a horrible, horrible plan for the ecology. So I'm out. I don't want to be too long. The most important thing to me, and I want to apologize again, Jody. The most important thing to me is the Tuscarora heritage. The war in Johnson County, the treaty, if I'm correct, was signed in the early 1700s. 50 or 60 years before we were a country. We had Native Americans, indigenous people is what we should call them, living in my backyard. We have to preserve that. It's important. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Plumley at 105 Stonehenge Drive. I have a timer for 3 minutes. If you would allow me, I have a couple images, including some RCA images that I got from the Town Council from maybe 6 weeks ago. I knew you were reviewing that. I'd like to plug that in. I'll definitely not be taking long.
You'll be given 5 minutes. Okay?
Thank you.
Awesome.
Essentially, I also want to say I won't, to the best of my knowledge, be giving any opinions today. I'm going to be trying speaking towards matters of fact and my own feelings, looking at some of these pictures. Let's go to picture number 1. So what is an RCA, just to jog everybody's memory? This is 70. I walked down here a couple weeks ago going into downtown. These two red sides, I'm not going to say the exact slope, but you have these in your minds. These are going up to 70. I was just seeing that they were being, refitted with some new plants. I'm going to use this map to look at what we really want to look at, which is the RCA for this land. So I want to say I zoomed in on this section of the land. Of the total acreage, this is only about maybe 40%. However, you do see the 3 black roads, 2 of which are connecting with the most current revision. I centered this map on right where my cursor's at. This particularly large portion, which is very near Mr. Sam's portion of land. I'm going to go to section 3. Section 3, this you've already seen this today. This is a zoomed in. I did not doctor this version at all, much like the previous one. I really want to spend the remainder of my time on number 4, though. So I want to say this is not perfectly aligned. You can see on the left that that middle road, that black road, is about 10 feet off. But I did align it as well as I could without having to doctor or alter the map to the top part, in particular this stream here. I actually feel encouraged that we're developing on this land. My family lives near here. I trekked this land as a child and found some arrowheads as well. I feel concerned about the slope of this land. In particular, I feel worried about this blue SCM stormwater control measure that looks to be going from the elevation map, just from memory. In the middle of the screen at phase 2, that's a 310-foot elevation. Just to the right of there, it turns into 290, but the SCM itself goes from about a 35-foot drop. This stormwater control measure. I'm not sure if this will be a retention pond. It'll be up to the developers to choose. But I am worried about this slope, and I hope that is why I included the first picture for you to understand the magnitude of some of these kinds of slopes. I understand that this will be open space and public space, and it looks like it'll be directly behind the yellow areas, which will be houses. Just my memory as a child. This is, I don't know, the stormwater control measure, if that's going to be a pond, that's a pond on about a 3-to-1 slope and a 35-foot drop. So I'm not an expert witness on that, but I really just want to conclude by saying I feel encouraged by the development of this land and the new revelations that we've had around it, and I would like to congratulate the town on what is potentially the oldest cultural heritage site in Johnston County. Okay, and I'd like to thank you for the time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Jack Cawthorn. I'm gonna be pretty quick, but I've been back there a couple of times, and since the developers have come in, like when they brought their machinery, I've seen it in person. They have downed trees into blue line streams that have endangered salamander in it. I've seen it. Whatever professional they sent out there was not looking. Like, I've been there my whole life as a kid. Like, I've seen a lot of these endangered animals. And not only that, just sent, like, we got to grow the town. I've loved what's happened to Clayton. I mean, I'm very happy to live here my whole life. There's lots of cool stuff, cool bars downtown. Like, a lot of my friends are moving here. Like, I like Clayton a lot. We got to grow. But this area in particular, like, we've already destroyed all the forests around. And now it's like the coyotes and raccoons and stuff are starting to come onto our properties because they have nowhere else to go. Like, some of our neighbors have lost their chihuahuas, their cats to coyotes. And I actually had a coyote start to come up on me in our yard, and I had to get my dogs inside. Like they got to have some place to go. And if, I mean, I guess we can call animal control, take them somewhere else, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, I don't see that's necessary, you know? And another thing is there's definitely been trash left out there by the people that have been running this machinery. We have pictures of it and stuff, pieces that have fallen off of the, I don't know what it's called. It's like a big machine with like a spinny saw on the front. I don't know, but we have pictures of the trash, and this is bigger than just what has been presented by them. Like, there's definitely a lot not being said, but thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Joe Brown. I have a couple questions for y'all. I would like to actually get not the name of the LLC that y'all are gonna approve to do this, but the actual developer and the engineer. You guys let all these LLCs come in here in the last 2 years. Y'all have turned what was a beautiful town into nothing but a bunch of apartment buildings and houses. This looks worse than Florida, where I moved from 16 years ago. When I came here, Clayton was gorgeous. If you go out, can't think of the road right now, Cover Bridge Road right now, y'all have let them build nothing but huge apartment buildings out there. If you go down Cleveland School Road, there's no farmland left. What are y'all doing? Do y'all care more about what you may potentially get to move here or what you already have here? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is John Bureau, and I live on 113 Brightleaf Drive, which is right off of Country Lane. One of my main concerns is I know Hunter Way keeps being talked about as a main thoroughfare for people coming out of there. No, it's not going to be there. There's too much residential stuff going on in there. If you ever drive up and down that, they're going to be dumping onto Country Lane is where they're going to be coming out at. And I want to know who is going to maintain Country Lane Road, because we're outside city limits right there. I've been there since 1994. We've had it right there at the intersection of Country Lane and Brightleaf. Every year, pothole develops right there. And I'm talking, you know, it gets fairly good sized. My neighbor has gone out there and filled it in with concrete, with gravel, whatnot. You stick another, what, 500 cars potentially up and down that road? What's going to happen to the road? Who is in charge of maintaining it? Who's going to hold them to maintaining it? What's being done about the school? 280 some odd homes, 90 homes, whatever it's going to be. How many children are going to be in these homes? Where are they going to go to school? They're going to be going to school at Clayton Elementary, right at the end of Barber Mill Road and 42. Is that school prepared to handle that kind of number of influx? Has provisions been made for that? I brought all these questions up the last time we did this. I've seen 0 issues been taken care of prior to anything being done. How can we put a development like this in and then try to play catch up? It's not going to work. Dairy Road. There's another, you know, there's the Grovewood up there, okay? People making left-hand turns into Dairy Road. I've had to sit there and wait 5 minutes in traffic because of traffic coming down Barber Mill. Yeah, somebody could have went, but they chose to play it safe for them, and they tie it up because there's no turn lane there. What's going to happen when you stick all those houses in there with all those vehicles, are provisions being made? Nothing's been spoke about that. And again, I brought these points up last time, and nothing has been improved. Where's the guarantee for us now that anything's going to change for an improvement? And that's what I've got to talk about. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. One more.
Hi, my name is Savannah Salim. I'm from 3015 Equine Lane. Sam is my dad. This is kind of impulsive, never done this before. You don't have to be scared of me. I'm not an old, white, cranky man. But in addition to this being a legality issue with the federal acts and laws that are, or rather should be preventing it, an environmental issue regarding runoff and pollution, an ecological issue where rare protected species such as the rattlesnake plantain, for example, are being affected. This is also, and most importantly, a conservation of cultural practices and sensitivities. Instead of placing a monetary value on something based off of someone who is not necessarily a citizen of Clayton, let us place a cultural value as well as an ethical value on this land and let it stand and be preserved for as long as we live. To me, this is very simple historically and even presently. Instead of treating this as something we need to fix for the time being, let us fix this permanently. I'd like to sum this up with a comparison. If America can't really or shouldn't print more money because it decreases the value as well as the quality of the currency, why should we be building more houses that are going to decrease the quality of the forest life and the citizens as well as indigenous citizens of Clayton, North Carolina? In summation, let us not choose to treat the symptoms but fix the cause. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm closing the public hearing. Thank you for your input. It has been duly noted on the record for the town of Clayton, and I'll turn it over to the council for any discussion. Mr. Casey.
Appreciate everybody coming out tonight and raising some additional concerns. I have a few concerns with this neighborhood. Initially, obviously some other things were brought up tonight. Four kind of being primary: the traffic to and from the subdivision, the environmental impacts based on topography of the land, specifically the steep slopes and stormwater issues, concerns with the details and designs of the aspects of the community. I feel like I didn't get some of those questions answered tonight. And basically the density of the development. So I guess the first one, Country Lane seems like a very narrow road. Basically, it's just old country road. Looks like it was, some asphalt was thrown on it. I see the traffic study says that that's going to be the road most highly used. If that's the case, it's going to get 4 times the amount of traffic than it normally does. I, however, do feel that Hunter's Way may be used more. You know, just when I was driving around there, I do appreciate the applicant deciding or committing to put traffic calming devices on Hunter's Way and Lynn Drive. Just looking at the topography on the map and listening to the concerns of citizens, I do have concerns about the grading and the need for the stormwater impacts. Number 3, basically, my third concern is the Glen Haven subdivision. Those homes were built to the contours of the land. They were built with crawl spaces. The applicant did say that this site was going to be mass graded. Seeing that this development is going to feed into that neighborhood, I think we need to have some sort of consistency in style and design with that respect. But one of my biggest ones is, this is 115 acres. The applicant said that, you know, 50 of these acres was going to be buildable land. So, you know, if they put 299 houses on only 50 acres, you're looking at a density of almost 6 acres, 6 houses per acre. And to me, that just doesn't meet the definition of a smaller, medium density lot. And so, I have some concerns with that. Also seeing the fact that we have a R10 and an estate subdivision surrounding that development. And basically, you know, we're talking about, you know, lots that, maybe I was wrong, but about 1/10 of an acre. Also considering the conditional zoning criteria for number 3, it basically states about does it or does it not improve the balance of uses or meet specific demands for the town. Based on the information I was given, I have a lot more questions, of course, that weren't answered, but I feel like it doesn't meet meet it based on the land size, or the lot size, excuse me. We've expressed also a need for larger lots. We've also expressed a need for larger houses and more architectural features, similar to the preserve project at Kitchen Farms. So based on the design, and the lot sizes, I do have a problem with that. I appreciate the applicant. I appreciate what they've came tonight and discussed, but I don't feel comfortable with this land. I know it's not an easy piece of land to work with. There's obviously some issues with it. And I said before, based on conditions 1 and 3 of the zoning criteria, right now my recommendation would be no.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just got 2 quick comments. First one, and there was I think it was Mr. Jacobs that mentioned that my ancestors, I think he said, killed his ancestors. I'm pretty much for sure they're not my ancestors. With that being said, I do have issues with some erosion issues as the topography as you look over this. With that being said, one of the gentlemen was talking about guarantees. I would like to see in some way, shape, or form that developers would look to put some type of guarantees in there that if X was to happen after development takes place, that developers will come in. And I'm thinking already in a particular, we're new to council, just came on in December, but a particular thing that had came up, that there were not any guarantees and there were some things that had happened. And if developers would make that guarantee, I know you say that, that you're 100% concerned about stormwater runoff, but the true way that you show the concern to the citizens is that you guarantee if anything happens afterwards, that you guys will be the first ones there in whatever capacity. So I don't know how that would be written in or how we would put that in there, but I would like to see some type of guarantee as far as erosion and stormwater runoff.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Mr. Thompson.
I feel like based on everything that we've heard tonight from both the applicant and from our many citizens, this either warrants further discussion or denial. And I'm comfortable with either. But what I'm not comfortable with is approving tonight. And I think if this is something worthy of further discussion, I would be amenable for tabling. To give time for these issues to be worked out, or if that's not the pleasure of the group, I'm comfortable with it being a no for me.
All right, Ms. Archer.
Thank you for everyone's comments. First of all, these are such important issues, and I know this is such a difficult time, and this is a difficult piece of property to work with as well. I do have my own set of concerns. I vocalized some of those. I did forget to mention that the main steep slope that I was concerned about is the one that appears to run between the upper part of the development and the lower part of the development, and that is where you have the connectivity between the two. I do understand that there is a divided road there, which helps in an emergency situation have 2 points of entry and exit. However, I'm just really uncomfortable with what appears to be a steep slope running through that area, stabilizing that area. If there were some sort of emergency and that road were to go out, I mean, I guess what I would really like to see is the map that maybe you had from a time before during in a submittal that showed the steep slopes on that parcel overlaid with the current proposed site plan. So we could see where there are the larger steep slopes in relation to the proposed development. And on that note, I'm more in favor of tabling this, and so that would be one thing that I think could help if we could see the steep slopes overlaid with the current proposed development. Also, we did mention building, obviously grading, mass grading. versus building homes that are more in contour with the land. I understand maybe there is a possibility that some of those homes would be constructed with crawl spaces and basements. It would be nice if we could get a little more of an idea of how likely that would be. I don't know, a percentage or a potential area of the property that would have homes that are constructed more with the contour there. In addition to that, I do appreciate, again, the traffic calming, the willingness to do traffic calming on Hunter's Way. I do still have concerns that there are no plans for a left or a right turn lane onto Barber Mill. I would just like to at least have a discussion perhaps with staff, given that, you know, obviously that didn't show up in the TIA, but further discussions on just making sure that that's really not necessary there. And then further to address the citizens, and I'm glad that you came here tonight and shared your concerns. I have nothing but respect for you being here tonight and sharing your culture and your tribal history here and the photographs and everything. Really appreciate that. I just wanted to state from a legal perspective, I feel like that conversation isn't so much with this body. I don't even know that we have authority in that area. It seems to me that might be something that you need to take to the current property owner or maybe the developers on their behalf. I also know that the State Historic Preservation Office frequently gets involved in these matters. So I'm not trying to pass the buck. I'm just trying to spell out, I don't believe this body has any real jurisdiction on that as much as we value and respect everything that you said. And that's all.
That's very well stated. All these comments are very well stated. I will tell you that I believe Councilwoman Archer is spot on when it comes to this particular aspect of the property being a sacred ground, but it not being certified by any state agency or county agency. It's just been based on what we know of our history, but there's no substantial basis acknowledged by the federal government, the state government, county government that says this is something that should never be touched. I think it's important to understand that even though we may not like all of this growth that we're seeing in Clayton, that developers have rights. Got rights in America to take a gun, to carry a gun. You know what a battle that is to try to take people's guns from them. They shoot you before you can get out of your car. A developer is not going to shoot you before you get out of your car, but a developer has the right to develop a piece of property, whether it's a family farm, whether it's a piece in the woods, whether it's something that has as much what I believe as a sacred ground as this property. But unfortunately, you know, all of this to me is coming into the picture too late, and it's sad. I'm sorry that tonight, that Saturday is like the first time you had awareness created on this. I think it's in the best interest of this council to table this matter, to allow for a conversation with the developer as it pertains to some sort of guarantee as it pertains to stormwater runoff, to have some more conversation around the density and the steep slope. I think there's been some very important aspects of this project that have been highlighted as a concern by this council that, in all due respect to the developer, we should have another conversation with staff and the developer to see what types of things could be ironed out. While I would love to say, let's get East Carolina as a pirate, let's get East Carolina down here to do an evaluation of this project, of this property, you know, we cannot hold up this project waiting on what may come from ECU or what may not come from ECU. That's not fair to the developer. That's not fair to the people who've sold this property. You know, I just don't see that as I don't see that as fair. What I do see as fair is tabling this until the next meeting to give all the parties developer, staff, an opportunity to have some discussion around the information that's been presented tonight, and then come back in 2 weeks for council to make their final decision. However, I'm just the mayor. So if the council wishes to take action on this tonight, thumbs up or thumbs down, I'm all in favor. Ben, give you the floor.
I was just going to say, if council does decide to table it, I just wanted to go over what I heard as issues to try and discuss, and just so I know as staff what to talk with the developer about and what you're looking to bring back, but
Yes.
I'll wait till the council makes that decision.
All right. Wishes of the council.
I mean, Mr. Mayor, I'm fine tabling it. There's a lot going on here. I mean, there's a whole lot, in my opinion. And if that's the pleasure of the council, I'm okay with it. Obviously, the Native American concerns are something else we need to add to the consideration list or go through the proper channels. I don't know if it's going to take 2 weeks or longer, but yeah, I'm fine tabling it.
Mr. Thompson.
I just don't know that 2 weeks is going to be enough time to work these issues out for anybody. I have some concern on giving it that tight a time frame.
Well, first of all, I think you guys should decide if you want to table this. Thumbs up or thumbs down. In the event you want to table this, then I think you need to come up with specifics for directions for staff and include a timeline or no timeline.
And is tabling done in the form of a motion? My apologies. Okay. Then I would like to move to table item 2021-20-CZM Country Lane Ordinance number 2022-0305.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to table this item. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now that this item has been tabled, there's not been a specific date attached to when it needs to be brought back up before this council. So I think it's in the best interest of staff for you all to express to them the items that you want to see more detail on before this gets brought back to this council.
Did you have a... Whoops. Were you working on a list while we were talking? I was also attempting to take notes, but if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, I can go over sort of what I heard. So one was stormwater runoff. I guess see if there's anything additional that can be brought forth to address stormwater runoff or potential for stormwater runoff. I heard clearly from at least a couple council members seeing a map of steep slopes on the property as would meet our current ordinance for steep slopes, seeing where those would be on the property. Likely, I guess, a map or some information about potential for crawl space or basement homes based on not mass grading or for the home sites. So if there's opportunities there for some crawl space or basement homes, opportunities for traffic calming on Hunter Way, whether it's in the form of a new condition or more information on the potential for that, more information about or potential for left or right turn lanes on Barber Mill at Hunter's Way. And then I know there was some concern about density. Would you like staff to discuss with the applicant about reducing the density of the property, of the proposal?
Yes, please, yeah.
Okay. Is that pretty much everything?
Just one other thing. You did say stormwater runoff, but in covering erosions, but I would want to see something as I was talking about as far as after, if the project is approved, afterwards, what type of guarantees for if X comes up, and X, we can, discuss that, but what guarantees do they have to the community?
I want to know specifically if the trees that were presented on the screen tonight, I want to know from the developer what the plan was for those trees. I did hear this would be a clear-cut community, which means everything would be cut down. I find that so incredibly hard to believe. You know, not only because of the historic and the purpose of the tree, but because of the art form of the tree. And we got a lot of places to live in Clayton. And if you are going to invest and build something that you're trying to sell to people when the market is full, your product needs to be distinctly different, which means it needs to show up. And as a floral designer, distinctly different is color, texture, space, pattern. It needs to be distinctly different. That's going to make everybody want to come and buy what you got. We just had out here at Amelia Church Road and Shotwell, a developer who's putting in some very modern apartments. Okay, so it doesn't look like anything we've ever seen. It'll be sold out before you can, it'll be filled out before you can even build it because there's nothing else like it. So developers, you know, I think you need to look at what this property has and how you can create and add value to what you're creating for the people who are going to live there. That's going to make people want to pay more and a bigger draw than just what's out there. There's 1,000 houses for sale out at Flowers Plantation. Don't build anything like what everybody else is doing. So I do want to know what their plan was for those trees. Okay. And if it is to clear cut, then just say it was to clear cut. I just want to be clear. Okay. Are you good?
Yeah, one final question. I believe you had closed the public hearing.
Yes.
So just note that bringing this back, the public hearing will remain closed and there will not be any additional public notice. Is that?
That's correct. So basically, to interpret, we've had the public hearing. There will be no more input from the public. And when it gets brought back up, it will be the information that this council has requested, presented, and from that, they will formulate their decision. However, I will tell you this. At every Town of Clayton Town Council meeting is always public comment that comes in at the very last. And if you wish to speak at public comment, those two are going to be limited to 3 minutes, but you are more than welcome to speak at any time for any matter with the Town of Clayton during public comment.
And finally, do you want staff to try and bring some of them back on April 4th, which?
I want staff to take time to do what needs to be done.
Okay. So work with the developer and bring things back when both sides are comfortable with coming back?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Now we're going to move on to, and if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome. If you'd like to exit, I will give you 30 seconds to exit so we can all exit. Thank you. Up next under old business is the sale of property purchase agreement Peyton Drive.
Good evening again, Mayor, Town Council, Jonathan Jacobs, Assistant Town Engineer. This is an action based on the resolution adopted on February 7th from a presentation by Engineering Director Joshua Baird regarding the sale of a parcel along Peyton Drive, which required an upset bid process per general statute. So this is just action allowing the town to execute the purchase agreement that now that the upset bid process has ended.
Questions or comments?
No.
Mr. Thompson.
I move that we approve adoption of resolution 2022-12, the sale of property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the adoption resolution 2022-12. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Moving down to staff reports, beginning with the town manager. Thank you, sir. Town attorney. Thank you, town clerk.
No report.
Thank you, other staff. He's not the only.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council.
Rich Capole, Interim Town Manager, asked me to give you guys an update on our wastewater treatment plant project. Last week on Wednesday, we had a conference call with the LGC staff regarding the financing and their request to require the town to produce a full-blown feasibility study. We requested them to allow us to not pursue the feasibility study, rather just do agreed upon procedures, as well as to allow us to accept a private placement offering that we received from Capital One funding, which is, we're planning on going with the 25-year option, with the first 2 years being interest only. Today, we received feedback from the LGC staff that they are foregoing their feasibility study requirement, which puts us more in line with timing of a GMP and being able to get this project on the agenda for LGC approval at the May meeting. So with that said, at the next meeting in April, we'll be coming before council with a findings resolution for the revenue bond.
Awesome. Awesome.
Any questions? We're almost across the goal line here.
Yeah, we are. That's awesome. Hold my breath. Thank you, Robert.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Mayor, Town Council, Louis Duffy, Project Manager for the, I guess you can call it the wastewater program. Includes the facility, Sam's Branch, the Little Creek Lift Station, the Little Creek Force Main Gravity Sewer, and the ECIA project. Today, I want to give you guys an update on the Greenway closure that's going to occur associated with the Little Creek Gravity Sewer project. We've been working with the contractor. We have a notice to proceed of April 4th. They wanted to mobilize pretty quickly to start clearing the Greenway. And just as a refresher, the gravity sewer is going to run right down here and continue up this way towards town. But so we're going to be clearing the Greenway in that area, ripping up the asphalt because the gravity line goes pretty much right there. They've agreed to push back that clearing to April 18th, but that is going to be the start of the closure, and it'll run till the winter of 2022. As you can see, what we're proposing is closing it at the Riverwalk parking lot, and then also there's a little bit of a trail that comes off the back of Ashcroft to close it there, and it gives citizens and people to go kind of either way, and to know that this section is closed. There's really no way to get around this, because like I said, they're going to be tearing up the asphalt to install this line. That's about it. Working with Parks and Rec, Trails Department, and Nathaniel on how to push out either a social media blast or let people know. But I wanted to give you guys an update first on where we're heading. And if you have any questions, I can take them.
Questions for staff?
I actually have a comment. Thank you for the update. I really appreciate that. Obviously, this is going to be a pretty impactful to the people that use that area of the Greenway. I know this isn't under your purview, but I think it would be a great idea if there's some sort of signage or some sort of recommendations for other locations to go on the Greenway while this is closed. Because I know me, I would scratch my head, probably just go back home, walk around town, but we want people to continue to use these greenways and take advantage of them. So if there's some other areas that they can go and enjoy until this gets up, back and running, I think that'd be a great idea from staff to do.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other staff?
Matt Suffin, Deputy Fire Chief. I'm going to call a couple of my friends up here. I'm sure some of y'all are familiar with the group called TANG. It's the Triangle Area Networking Group. We've been doing some brainstorming on how we, the fire department and can partner with other groups and do events together to reach out to our community. I'm not going to steal all their thunder, but I did want to take a minute to talk about, I went to one of their events recently that was related to autism awareness. And with April coming to the Autism Awareness Month, we are partnering with them to do an event towards the end of April. I'm going to let them tell you about it, but I have their president, Joey Cutherow, here, Vice President Victoria Johnston, and the Community Outreach Coordinator, Michael Strauss. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Joey Tutherow. I'm the owner of a business called Handyman on Purpose, based right here in downtown Clayton. Joey Tutherow, 320 Virginia Street, also a resident of downtown Clayton. But today I get to tell you about a group I'm a part of called the Triangle Area Networking Group, colloquially known as TANG. We are a local networking group right here in Clayton that exists for the sole purpose of building up businesses in Clayton to serve the Clayton community. One thing that's different about us is that we don't use the carrots and sticks of a lot of networking groups, but we simply just exist because we like each other. We want to build each other up. We meet weekly at a local restaurant with 33 other business owners currently. Until next month, we're planning to vote in another 2 or 3 more, depending on applications. I'm trying to skip ahead a little bit here. This year, we wanted to do something a little bit different as our group has continued to grow, and Victoria will talk about our history here in a second. But we wanted to invest in our community in a different way other than just building businesses. And so we recruited Michael as our community outreach director so that we could have someone focused on looking for specific opportunities for us to partner and network with other groups and other opportunities. We've been around since 2019, and so for the history, I'll let Ms. Victoria take over.
Hi, my name is Victoria Johnston. Thank you for having us, Mayor and Town Council members. I created this group September of 2019, and we literally started in the back of Boulevard at the Big Table, Boulevard West. And it was me and a friend of mine that just had this idea of starting a group of members that just wanted to grow business locally in Clayton, and just based off referrals. And business owners who knew, liked, and trusted each other, and that's how we referred business to each other. Officially last August of 2021 is when we became a nonprofit, North Carolina nonprofit, and we average anywhere from 90 to 140 referrals per month that we pass to local business owners in Clayton, and we definitely have a passion for just sharing business and building community. And I feel like Michael Strauss is the best community outreach chair that we could possibly have for our autism awareness event, and he's going to tell us more about that event.
That's quite a compliment.
I'm not sure I can follow it up, but good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. I'll keep it super brief. As everyone's mentioned, we've got a great autism awareness fundraising event that we're trying to plan, and Matt and Amy with the Firehouse, they've been super generous to offer their space to us. The event is coming up on Saturday, April 23rd from 10 until 12, and basically what we are here to do tonight is to invite each and every one of you out to the event to show your support. Of course, we'd love to have you. But long story short, we are going to market this to other family members and really make it more about a family community event in Clayton. There'll be a Touch a Truck event that will be going on. Children with autism sometimes can be fearful of different noises, different things. Seeing a fully dressed firefighter come out to a scene can be very nerve-wracking for a child, especially with autisms and disabilities. I don't know if any of you know, but a good friend of mine, DJ Svoboda, with the Imagine Friends of Imagineville, I'm getting some head nods, so I appreciate that. He will be, I don't want to say keynote speaker, but he will be speaking for a few minutes at the event. And I'll talk a little bit more at the event with him. But like I said, we just really would like to invite each and every one of you out to show your support. And on top of that, the ask that I have for you, Mr. Mayor, is that if you would consider proclaiming April as Autism Awareness Month in the town of Clayton. And like I said, I'll leave that on the table for your consideration, and it'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you all for your time this evening.
I definitely think we can do that. I don't know if your organization or an autism organization already has a proclamation that they use, And if you can just get that to Town Clerk, we can get that on the agenda hopefully for April.
Awesome.
And make that happen.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you guys' time, and thank you for having us this evening.
Awesome. Thank you all for what you do. If we could also get that date, April 23rd, 10 to 12, put on our calendar, that would be great.
From 10 to 12.
As an invite from 10 to 12, yeah. All right. I'll now open the floor for informal discussion and public comment. Anyone wish to speak? Yes, sir.
If I may, by the way, Michael Plumley, 105 Stonehenge Drive. I'd love to give 2 documents to the council this evening, some recommendations, and also this infographic that I'll be talking about definitely in under 3 minutes. May I give them to Ben, some copies? Great. While he's handing that out, I'm going to take 30 seconds just to pull up the infographic on the screen. It's very easy to find. Thank you. I'm really only going to be talking about the infographic today. The other document is for your leisure. But, okay, great. Believe it or not, I'm actually wasn't going to be here to talk about that other development. I'm here to talk about science today. Again, council, you're very good at assessing risk. It's been made evident to me in these previous meetings. But especially in the last 2 weeks since we met last night, something has happened. One of the doctors that I follow in the community talks about a schism, a fracturing of the science community. And it's really sad for me to see this. I love science. Science embraces experimentation. It embraces uncertainty. And it's really a great philosophy for which to see the world. The idea is now, in 10 years from now, there's going to be 100 papers on both sides supporting the policies that we've been all experiencing as a culture in the last 2 years. We don't have time to go through 100 different studies so you can make health policies on it. But I can go through this one in 30 seconds. You ready? Okay, I can debunk this one in 30 seconds. One of the, well, you'll see the issue with this is, so you're very good at assessing risk. And I want everyone to imagine at home you're on a town council, and let's say I'm the town manager with a new budget item. Money's important, especially other people's money. My example I have is, let's say there's a new fire truck engine being ordered, and if we buy it this year, we save 15% on inflation. All right, so of course you'll ask me what the price is, and then I say to you, it's $150,000 asterisk. And there's a tax of $10,000 asterisk. You know, sometimes the numbers matter. We need to be serious with this, with these numbers. You may ask me, could you get me the real number? Or I used to go to school in this building back in 93, 94. So the teachers would ask me in this situation, Michael, did you finish your homework? I want to circle for you the asterisk on, well, wrong one. The asterisk on cloth mask here, you may not have seen it. Again, it takes me 2 to 3 hours to go through these studies, good or bad. You can scroll to the bottom to see what it says, but essentially it says, not statistically significant. These are documents being given that public policymakers are making choices off of. 30 seconds was all I needed for that. I also want to point out, this wasn't even a scientific experiment. This was a phone survey. 85% of the people didn't pick up. Hello, it's the CDC? Click. That's not a good response rate for this. There's even other things I could mention, but I just want to mention that this beautiful infographic that it was so nice that they made, if 56% is not statistically significant, I now have my doubts about the other percentages. Just to give you an example, that 83% for a respirator, that would mean it's more effective than the vaccine. So, as I've mentioned, there's a schism that's happening in science, and you're good at assessing risk. But what is the danger of being misled? These experiments are embarrassing. And one of the doctors that I follow, a hematology oncologist, Vinay Prasad, is on the other side of this schism with many other reputable doctors. I gave you his suggestions that he did about 2 weeks ago for when the COVID or seasonal flu viruses will inevitably surge again. As I said previously, I'm not here to actually recommend a change because the government structures are interwoven. But the real reason I'm not going to give a request for change is change doesn't happen after a fiery speech. It happens after quiet contemplation, reflection, prayer, meditation, a good night's sleep.
30 seconds.
I'd like to thank the council, the mayor, and all the behind-the-scenes individuals that helped these meetings. Best wishes with the rest of your evening. I hope you all make it home and have a nice night's sleep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well, and especially all the behind-the-scenes people.
All right, is there any council comments? Oh,
Sorry.
Shirley.
Sorry, I just got to say this real quick. I've been wanting to say it the past 2 council meetings. I really think we need to keep the people of Ukraine, the people who live there, what they're going through, and our thoughts and prayers. I mean, it's a tragic situation, and I just think we need to just please pray for them. Got off my chest.
Is there anything else that needs to come before this council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Good night.